30-ish seconds. I'll ask YouTube.
All right.
That's why I always mute everything.
All right, good evening, everyone. This is August 13th.
Mhm.
We are here for bargaining session number 2 and
Three.
bargaining session number 3. And the time is 4:42. We had some technical difficulties getting started. We're glad everybody's here and joining us today. First week of school with Munchkins and kids. Hope it's gone well. And with that being said, I want to walk through some things that we're waiting on that's out there that's happening, and then I'm going to hand it over to Stephanie with respect to what we'll lead with tonight. The first thing I wanted to just put in the open that we're anticipating is we have 2 MOUs out for a vote, would be TISA and the SAP training date, and we anticipate that will close Friday at close of business.
5 p.m.
And so we'll be anticipating those results with an outcome there. So those are 2 outcomes we're waiting on as a result of session 2, bargaining session 2 that we were in. The next part was when we were together last, PEA gave Article 6 across the table, which we prepared responses for. In addition, from session 1, we had a lot of language changes we pushed across. And session 2 had a lot of time. We talked about TISA, and we talked a lot to kind of get to where we needed to be on that. So tonight will be Stephanie's team presenting back a lot of counters to the language I would anticipate that we pushed session 1. So with that, I'll hand the agenda over to Stephanie.
Okay. So thank you for everybody for joining us today. Just a few housekeeping things. As Mr. Warren said, the TISA MOU and the SAP training MOU for TISA's for everybody in the teacher contract is eligible to vote on that. And then for the SAP MOU, all teachers are eligible to vote on that, and CDAP pairs, because that impacts our CDAP pairs. The vote is open until 5 p.m. tomorrow. If you have not voted, please vote. I will be sending out a reminder email tomorrow so that it's at the top of your email. If you are not getting it into your main box, please check your other side so that you can catch that and vote. When I left the office, we were creeping up towards a 40% voter turnout, which is pretty high for what we're normally at, but we are shooting for 60%. So make sure that you are voting. Your vote matters, your voice matters. And I also wanted to put out, as we start, I know we're not specifically talking money until the annual financial report is out, but I wanted our folks to know that our initial proposal is still on the table from our side, that we are asking for a 50-cent per hour raise for our para educators and everybody under the para contract, or under the secretary contract. And we are looking for a 6-level movement match for everybody else in the teacher contract. And based on when I ran numbers earlier this week, it looked like that remaining balance would be about $8.5 million with benefits. Total between everybody that was left out by the legislature for TISA and our support staff contracts. So I know we'll be talking more about that when we hit September, but still wanted to keep that on people's minds. I think we want to start with Article 6 because we had some revisions from the last time. And we did send those revisions through email to y'all's team so that you could have those ahead of time. And so just real quick, I wanted to go through the pieces that we've added in. And for color coding this, I had highlighted those in blue so that you could see what was proposed on the 27th of July versus the revision part. So taking away the pre-planning and orientation MOU and trying to embed it into Article 6. Oh, wait. Oh, sorry. I put them here and I thought we passed them out, but we didn't pass them out. I'm so sorry. Now, there is not enough for every single person. So please share, but I have actually already put all of the Word documents into the share folder. So if you have access to the share folder, you have access to, you should ask Ron. I'll give you guys a second to look at that and get it.
So this is Article 6.
Yeah, so you've already had this, you got this electronically. Yes. I just wanted to
This is the one I worked off of.
Yes.
Counter.
Yes, yes. So this is the one you guys worked off of. I wanted to make sure you had it, but I also wanted to present publicly what we had presented through email, just so you have it. And then actually I'm gonna pass it to you because then it's in your board
You
for
wanna do
that.
this first?
Yeah, let's do it first.
Okay.
And we do have counters to everything that you brought on June 25th.
Okay.
I know that we had run out of time with the money talks for TISA last time, but we have counters ready for everything for that. So we were looking to discontinue the pre-planning and orientation MOU and codify it in contract instead of having to sign an MOU every year for pre-planning and orientation. We've had a couple years to kind of test the orientation and pre-planning out with the split days and how we've done orientation. Overall, the feedback has been good from what people like about it. And so we have added in definitions for split day and flex time to incorporate pieces of that MOU and to clarify flex time. Also in that MOU, we've had the last couple of years where we've changed for elementary school grades. They were due on the 172nd day. We've been in practice doing it 176th day per that agreement over the last few years. So codifying that in contract. And again, in blue on 6.15, moving the orientation day during pre-planning week into the contract. And obviously we took out language that was specific to a school year because this would last, for every school year. And then I'll read through that. With orientation day, pre-planning week, school orientations would be held during the hours of 12 to 7 p.m. on the designated dates on the approved school calendar, not to exceed 7 p.m. with no more than 2 orientation sessions scheduled for a school. Orientation duties for any staff covered under this agreement are limited to up to 3 hours during the designated student orientation day set forth in the school board approved school calendar. And up to 60 consecutive minute faculty meeting will not occur on the school's designated orientation day. To compensate for teacher self-directed work time to orientation duties, employees under this agreement will be allowed to take flex time equal to that of their orientation duty time to be mutually agreed to by the supervisor and the employee to use during the pre-planning week or within the current school year. So that's pretty close to what we've been doing with the MOU the last few years. We also, on 6.214 and 15, we had wanted to codify the pre-K teacher workday, knowing that they have federal ratio requirements for student to adult ratios. That if they're not getting their, so I'll just read it. Pre-K teachers must still receive their contractual self-directed planning blocks and 30-minute duty-free lunch throughout the day unless they have agreed to be compensated at their regular hourly rate of pay for their 30-minute lunch and 1/6 of their salary for an all-day teaching assignment. Exchanging protected time for compensation must be agreed to by the end of the pre-planning week of each school year. And then codifying the dean duties outside the regular workday in a proposed new 6.2-15. Deans have the expectation to be present for supervision duties, school-sponsored activities, and athletic events throughout the year. Deans will not be required to work more than 50 hours in a school year outside of their regular contracted 7.75-hour day. All duties and events outside of the contractual day must be equitably assigned if a school has more than one dean. We had looked at the $250 that are, or the $2,500 that are added into the dean's salary and divided it by 50 hours, knowing that they also have extra duties that they have to do throughout their workday. And that's where we came up with the 50 hours. Yes.
We're picking up.
We're fine.
Okay.
Yeah, we're fine.
And then 6.6-6, itinerant staff access to office or class space. Itinerant or district-wide staff who are assigned to a school or department must be provided with a quiet non-student area with a desk or table and a chair to plan and have meetings as appropriate at each assigned location. If the area is not a lockable space, the desk must have lockable areas to secure belongings while on campus. We've been running into some of our itinerant staff not having places at the schools that they're assigned to put their stuff down and whatnot. So we want to make sure that our itinerant staff have dedicated spaces for them when they are at their assigned schools. And then on the back side, I was going back through and looking at our notes. And so we needed to add in physical education teachers into our class size and caseload caps. PE classes will follow the same class size caps as their corresponding grade level bands. If class size exceeds the grade band cap, then a PE para allocation must be posted for hire. If class size exceeds double the grade band cap, then a second PE para allocation must be posted for hire. PE classes shall not exceed triple the grade band cap with one PE teacher and two PE paras. And then adding in for media specialist, this has been a concern of our media specialists, especially with the amount of work they're asked to do with all of the laws that have happened with books over the last few years, that one media specialist for every school will be allocated. A media para allocation will be posted for hire for every 1,000 students enrolled at a school. And so those are the revisions from 6 that you did receive electronically, but wanted to put on the record what the revisions were.
Thank you. So then what I'll do is pick right up where you left off. We'll go back through Article 6. Bit by bit, ensuring that we're presenting our counters.
Okay.
And we're going to hand those out. So Karen, go ahead and hand those across the table for us. So the first piece, as you discussed, the split day, just to clarify, that's just to make it clear in that pre-planning week. And I'd look back over our schedule for like 8-3, 8-4, and 8-10. Those were split days.
And the one in October.
And there's another one in October. Just what defines the 7.7 an hour, 7.75,
Yes.
half and half. That's all that did.
Yep.
The flex time piece, you'll notice that there we have a language change in that one. The discussion in the flex time was that we agreed with everything except to be used within the current school year. And the reason for that was we just didn't want it, quote, on the books for the whole school year. You'll notice that we have language that we're countering back that says that we mutually agreed to be used within 9 weeks of when it is earned. So what that does is that allows building staff an opportunity. If it happens 9 weeks, then it would go to the next 9 weeks. You have that period of time to use it. It's not a school year.
Mhm.
It's not, I originally had contemplated 30 days, but we gave more time for that to be worked in and scheduled for it to be taken. So you'll notice that says 9 weeks. My thought would be if it's the fourth 9 weeks, then it would roll, somewhere else into the next year otherwise.
Well, I do have a question, because what you said is that they would be used, you could use it in the next 9 weeks, but it says within the 9 weeks of when it's earned. So if I have, let's say we have an event on the last week of the 9 weeks, am I not going to be allowed to take flex time, or is that going to be allowable into the next 9 weeks? Is that the
I
intent?
think I misstated that. The language was that it would be used within the 9 weeks that it was earned. So if we're in the first 9 weeks, then you'd have it. You could chew on that language with respect to the timeliness of the 9 weeks and where it was used, but it gives us 4 marcations of where to chunk that.
Well, then, I mean, I think we might offer, because the way it reads is that it's used within the 9 weeks of when it's earned. And I still go back to, if we have an event the last day of the 9 weeks for whatever reason, just the way the calendar works, that's technically within, let's say, the first 9 weeks. Am I not allowed to use flex time then, or can I use it in the second 9 weeks? And so within 9 weeks of when it's earned, or within a quarter, I guess I want to make sure I have the delineation there correct. Tracy's raising her hand.
Can I just offer?
I know you can't see Tracy, but we can see.
I know. So I really proposed this to Brian just to make it make sense, right? So I knew that was an issue, but
Okay.
I'm thinking from both labor and management, if something happens in the first 9 weeks.
Yeah.
Let's use it in the first 9 weeks. There's going to be those times, and I even brought up like graduation at the end of the year, whatever that looks like. And I think we would have to wordsmith that. What I want to get away from is within 90 days of when you earn it. Because now I have to track it 90 days for her, and then 90 days for him, and then 90 days for you. And you also have to keep track of when I got it and when it expires. just as a rule of thumb, and I don't know if we can all agree on how to wordsmith it. And then, of course, there's what's reasonable.
Mhm.
Yes, if I earn it the last week of the second quarter, then it should roll to the third. But I don't know how you say that in contract language.
Well, and actually, I think, and Brandon can lean over, I think I had internalized it as within the 9 weeks, and it just says within 9 weeks.
It is the 9 weeks. It's,
Okay.
it's the spirit of it.
Okay.
Okay.
Because that is not what it says, so
I just
understanding
know
the
what it
spirit.
says, that's why I.
Oh, yeah, so then if that is the spirit of it, then I would say you would need to throw that word in there. Because otherwise, it's like, I earn it today, I've got 9 weeks to use it,
Right.
so.
Okay,
Do we wanna
okay.
stay here a minute, or do you wanna take it back and look at it?
We'll take it back just so
So the
we can.
spirit is the 9 weeks. You see the
Okay.
4 chunks?
Yeah, so I'm.
But we've got this issue of when it's earned within a period of time, that it would be difficult to use it toward the end of that 9 weeks.
Mhm.
So
Okay, all right, thank you. But you're good with the split day definition from the MOU?
I put okay.
Okay.
On that one. Then we go to 6.11, which I had struck through. The teachers will be paid at their regular hourly rate for these activities. The reason I did that is because we've already established the flex time piece. That's what we've just discussed. That was the original intent of the original language. We did lean into the written mutual agreement piece because I figured that would provide a good codification that we could look back and agree on the amount of time and have it reported somewhere. And so that's where I was on that one. And then I think I made a remark on 176. I need to check with Darren Williams. I hear you saying the 176 is how we've done that in the past.
Been in the MOU for the last 3 years,
Okay.
so just putting that
Before
out
I
there.
would sign off, and I just
Okay.
want to get Darren's check mark
Okay.
on that one, that it's good. What the MOU says, that then we're probably in a really good place, that it's accurate. I just want to
Okay.
check with, he's our point person for those pieces, so I want
Yeah.
to make sure.
So question, just going back real quick before I lose the question. So right now, the current practice is principals will either pay out of their own budgets, Title I, however, or they provide flex time. And so that's a current practice. And so what was the hesitation of codifying that current practice?
Are you talking about 6.11?
Yeah, 6.11, because they are either currently paid through the supplemental pay app for extra activities, might be a Title I night, whatever, or they do get flex time. And so if they're not paid, they do get flex time. That's the current practice.
I would argue that we're not looking to change a current practice. I think, to be just very direct and honest with you, I'm concerned about the open door of when we agree and we schedule, as the language says, and we provide, here's the meeting dates, we're provided by the last teacher, day of pre-planning
Mhm.
previous year, and we say, these are when you need to be here.
Yeah,
These are part of your job responsibilities. I'm concerned that I don't want us to get into a situation of where every time there is something or a meeting that's not covered under one of those funding
Mhm.
sources, we're obligated to pay an hourly rate of pay when we have an option of flex pay. So I don't think my aversion is to using a federal funding source to pay
Mhm.
through supplemental pay if that's already there.
mhm,
But I hope you see, I have an unwritten check with an unwritten amount that I can't foresee here.
mhm.
So I need to lean back into the flex pay piece in that regard.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Now we'll go down to 6.15, and I don't know if this was you or us.
We had
I think
trickled
were
through
okay
that.
with that,
Just because it's already addressed.
and it's totally already in 6.3C, so I
Yep.
think that was one I had already written okay on as well.
Okay,
The orientation day, I want to have some discussion on. You'll notice that I have some language revisions here to 6.15. We leaned into your statement that school orientations will be held during the hours of 12 to 7 on designated dates on the approved school calendar not to exceed 7 p.m. There is a statement that follows that. Should operational needs arise outside of these times, the district will collaborate with PEA, period. Now, and then there was another part that was stricken with respect to the 2 orientations. Let's break these apart in discussions of each. the reason we need a clause of the operational needs is because as we were preparing and reviewing all of our schools, we have 2 or 3 that were discussed that with respect to how close the schools are and in the communities, and I guess how that would tax the roads and people's schedules. There may be a need to not have them during those hours. We had 2 or 3 that almost happened with this time. So we were concerned that we could have, as growth occurs in our area, situations where we couldn't get everything done within a 12 to 7 for the various levels of schools. That's all that says.
So what would that look like? So my concern with that, and I think our concern as a whole, is that we can't have people with their regular day and then going to 7 PM, like, and then they can have orientation for 7 hours because there's no restriction on that. I mean, and I hear that, but also if it's not codified, there is going to be a school that we're going to deal with that has teachers in orientation for 5 hours, and then we're going to be fighting about what that looks like. And so that's why we had originally, over the last few years, had restricted that time. And just the history, when I first came into this seat, teachers were up in arms about having to use their workday and it being taken up all day with orientation duties. And so we were trying to come to a compromise here, knowing that orientation is important, but also making sure that time is given back and that people aren't being taken advantage of.
I think the one that stands out, Stephanie, are the Lake Gibsons, just because that is traffic so terrible and both schools are so large now. There was conversations about, like, why couldn't the high school do 9 to 1 and the middle school do 1 to 5 or whatever? And so I think those things
Okay.
are reasonable. It would be worth having a conversation rather than locking in things like that just to the 12 to 7.
Mhm. But I think we're also concerned, like 4 hours is a huge chunk of time out of their 7.75 hour day.
Well, but just because I have orientation from 9 to 1 doesn't mean that all the teachers are doing it 9 to 1. So if I do 9 to 10, I do 9th grade.
But that's why we had the hours capped so that somebody couldn't, like, what I mean? Like a school could have it open from, let's say, 9 to 1, and then they could do 2 hours here and 2 hours here, but this doesn't, like your proposed language.
This doesn't say that. This is 12 to 7.
No, I understand, but when you're striking through, like, and we can talk about the 12 to 7, like, I think we're open to that.
Okay.
Our concern is making sure that those hours are capped so that a school cannot use somebody for 4 hours. Right? And so
There's a different way we can get there. Maybe we can give you something that's more
Okay.
palatable.
because that's the concern from teachers, is that, because before, when we didn't have any guidelines, it was the Wild West. Like every school did it differently. Some schools only had an hour or 2. Some schools had 4 different sessions. Some schools were expecting people to be there till 8 o'clock. Like it was just all over the place, and it wasn't something that we could easily track and monitor. And then teachers were giving up their whole entire workday to orientation duties and trying to mitigate that as much as possible.
Again, we're leaning into the 12 to 7, which does provide the definition, just
Mm-hmm.
asking for consideration for those operational discussions, as Tracy's outlined there as well. Now, the other stricken language you see there is the 2 orientations, the limit to 2. And I have to just quite say honestly, that's a period of time where we need teachers there to be with parents, to meet them and to greet them, to be in their rooms or otherwise. And we see it clearly just a management right, not to be directed whether we need 2 or we need 3. We've established a time period that we're gonna embrace. But what is more, back to the operational discussions, it's a management right. We're concerned that the limitation of 2 is not a place we can be.
Well, and I would say though that on the employee rights is that we don't have, like, it is a working condition of how many hours we're asked to do orientation, et cetera. And so like that is a working condition that it is mandatory subject to bargaining, not a management right.
And my rebuttal of that would be, we're paying teachers for the day to be there. We're also in that discussion of flex time. So there's not an issue here with respect to someone not being made whole. And I think the orientation days is actually in 6.11, I
But
believe.
you struck
as-
through the
as-
flex time.
No, we said that they would still be eligible for it, was paying them their regular hourly rate of pay at 6.
No. In the orientation stuff on the next page, you struck through the flex time that was equal to the orientation duty.
That is right. That is right.
So
It
you're
is.
not offering flex time. You're not offering anything and you're just telling them to do whatever they're told to do on their own self-directed workday.
Okay,
That's a problem.
all right. Again, and the point I was going to make was, the orientation days are part of 6.11 where it is outlined. With respect to, it says parent-teacher meetings, open house, graduations. So that's something that we do put out there ahead, that we're asking for that help. And we provide, to your point, the 6.1 says that we provide the flex time. So we can come back and revisit that.
Well, so, hang,
So,
6.1-1 really is about after-school things.
Yes.
This is during the workday, as teachers already do not feel as though they have enough time to get their classrooms ready. We hear it year after year after year. And this is essentially just saying, you can have an orientation from 12 to 7. Have no time to actually prep for your students because we need you to be available for all those hours. And we're not gonna compensate you during that teacher workday.
and I believe if I look back at that pre-planning week, August 5th and 6th were 2 whole days for teacher planning in their rooms.
But those were also orientation days.
That's correct. That's correct.
And so again, going back to, this has been the practice that we've had the last 3 years. And we're looking to codify that. And now we're looking to change it back to the Wild Wild West.
And we could go back and look at the half days because those half days are split between staff development and teacher planning as well. So those do lean, they roll one date into the next. So a half day of planning and then the very next day you roll into the planning as well.
But
Schedules.
that still doesn't address the orientation issues that teachers are having when there's no rules and guidelines for school-based administrators. And it's too different. We're too big of a district to have it too different. And it's too disparate.
So what we'll do is we've presented the proposal with respect to the language for you to take back and review. And we welcome your counter in that regard.
Well, our counter is what we had already proposed.
Well, it counts.
And so we can
Yeah.
talk through that, but that we've got to have parameters on orientation day.
Then we look at the next paragraph with respect to orientation duties. We struck through that particular language and it kind of flows into the fact that let's see here. To compensate the teacher for self-directed work time-directed orientation duties, employees under this agreement will be allowed to take flex time that equal their orientation duty time to be mutually agreed to by the supervisor. We could go back and review that again on the basis of, I believe, 6.11. But again, there's a concern of the number of hours and how we would physically be able to get this all done.
Well, I mean, we've been able to do it the last 3 years. So I'm struggling to understand. Tracy's raising her hand.
Okay. I wish I had eyes in the back of my head.
So I think in our conversations, the 12 to 7, what I hear you saying maybe is it's the amount of time, not necessarily the time on the clock. So what if we just called orientation a split day? Because we've defined a split day as 3 point something hours.
Well, then they could only do it during orientation during the morning, during their split day. Which I actually don't hate. I'll look down to my team.
It's hard for the working family. So.
Well, and I understand, but that's where the flex time comes in, and that's why I think it has to be codified, because we recognize that. Again, I work during the day too. I went to my son's orientation at night. And so I understand that, and I think a lot of us understand that, but that's where the flex time, I think, needs to be codified, that I, as a teacher, I am not being directed to use my entire, outside of my hour lunch, 6.75 hours for orientation duty. And you're saying it's a teacher workday, but it's not really a teacher workday because all of that has been assigned to orientation duties. And well, but right now it's not a split day, it's a full teacher workday. And so if it were a split day, don't hate the idea, but then we also still have to have some limits, I think, on evening orientation, and there has to be flex time codified for that.
So Stephanie, again, we keep talking about the 12 to 7. Things
Mhm,
seem to be okay there. The idea of the split day was creative.
mhm,
Let's go back to the flex time. If whatever time is remaining is the concern, and it's the flex time language that was originally stricken, if that's the issue, we can lean into the flex time for the time over to perhaps get to 12 to 7 and get any hours over encapsulated in the flex, and we would be done.
mhm,
You'd have your teacher plan day. You'd have part of that day from 12 to whatever the hours would be for the respective level of school. That
mhm.
would be for orientation. But if there were one of those programs or schools that went into the evening up to 7, so what are we talking? We're talking 3 to 4 hours, maybe 2 to 4
Depending
hours.
on the school, yeah.
That would be in flex time.
5 for high school.
So that might be our linchpin of resolution on that one, that we could retract back on the flex time and maybe resolve the language on that article there.
Okay. We'll workshop some things too, taking the conversation into consideration with our team. Okay,
All right, moving on to 6.
knowing that we'd have to change the calendar with the way it's designed if we were to go down the split day route. Just putting that on the radar for calendar committee.
Let's wait and see
Yeah.
what your team brings back.
Okay.
6.2 teacher workday. We both, looks like we had leaned into getting rid of the 30 consecutive minutes. We were
Oh, yeah,
both okay
that
with
cleanup.
The next part was where, I believe it was your language.
Mm-hmm.
School-based non-classroom personnel should be assigned a consistent 30 consecutive minute duty-free lunch. I struck that language and leaned into the if a change in schedule must occur, but I'm going to get there in a minute. The reason I struck through that first part was I made a remark that it's just not needed because it's already addressed in 6.2. I don't think there's a discrimination between like
Okay.
teachers and non-classroom teachers. I believe that the contract addresses teachers. It's in the front of the contract, and so that's where we would be. So I didn't just arbitrarily strike it to be disrespectful to non-classroom teachers. I believe they're already a teacher.
Well, and obviously, I mean, the certification recognition agrees with you and agrees with us. But where we came from with that language is that we've heard from our non-classroom teachers that their schedule is erratic, that they don't have a codified time for lunch. Sometimes they're asked to eat lunch outside of the cafeteria operation times. And so then if they're relying on school lunch, like they don't get a lunch that day, essentially, they don't get to eat. And so we wanted to make sure that as we're creating schedules at schools, that our administrators know, that our deans and our testing coordinators, our media specialists, our instructional coaches, whoever they're at, not in the classroom, still get that time. And so if it's supposed to be inferred, which it should be, because everybody that's under the teacher contract gets this, we wanted to make sure it was abundantly clear that they got this time.
And then the next statement, it was your statement. I changed it some. It ended with, unless the schedule change is emergent. I wouldn't.
Change is
tell me
emergent.
what that meant. I changed it to, unless the schedule change is an emergency.
That's fine.
So that kind of made more sense. And then employees shall still receive their duty-free lunch for that day. Then we moved down to 6.21, and I think we wanted to, you touched on this a little bit, but I wanted to just hear you talk more about the 2/3 supermajority versus the original language of majority. Why the change?
So when we're looking at people waiving their right to a duty-free lunch, and there's several schools that do this each year. But 51% of the staff shouldn't be able to take away my duty-free lunch. Like if I voted on the not prevailing side. I really think if we're gonna waive a contractual right to duty-free lunch, it should be a supermajority, a 2/3 vote. That a true supermajority of the staff want to get rid of their duty-free lunch. whether, and no matter what's going on, but that it should be a higher threshold to waive the right of duty-free lunch.
So I want to put this another way. So in Article 6.21, if a group of people says, we have a 2/3 supermajority, we vote, it's agreed. We can't accommodate with the schedule's 30 minutes. We're gonna do 25, we're gonna do 27. That's what's this.
No, this waives it.
Because when you said waive that right, and that's what I see this article is,
Yeah.
is the group of people coming together to vote to have a schedule other than the 30
No,
minutes.
the way it reads and the way it's in practice is that they either get, and even before we had the 30 minutes codified, teachers got the same amount that the students got. And so, for instance, I'm gonna use Haines City High School as an example because Patrick's sitting right next to me. Haines City High School decides to vote and they waive their duty-free lunch each year. And so, but having half the staff in a simple majority is 50+1. So just over 50% of the staff get to make a decision to waive everybody's duty-free lunch at that point, that threshold should be.
So meaning they eat in the cafeteria or.
That they have a duty assigned to them. They might eat in the classroom. I know at Haines City High School, they go into the cafeteria and they have supervision duty.
Or the courtyard.
Or the courtyard or something like that. So they're completely giving up their duty-free lunch. That's the waiver here. They don't get to adjust the minutes. It's either they get it or they don't get it.
Thank you.
And so to have that, making sure that that's a supermajority threshold of 66.7%.
All right. Thank you. Now moving on,
So are you good with that?
yes, with a 2/3 majority, we could put a check mark on it.
All right, awesome.
Then we move down into 6.27. I think this was your language. And there is new language we added here. Your language was if instructional personnel are required to pack up classroom or office belongings while school is not in session or during an emergency, then they will be provided space to store. And we added professional work-related items or materials at their work site. Personal belongings are the responsibility of the teacher. And I can give you reason and rationale, but there's so many items that we could walk through that are in the rooms that are not relevant. They're relevant, but they're personal belongings.
Yeah.
So we can't have room to store, the chair or the rocker or the air fryer or the big lamp or otherwise,
Fair.
So we're here to be a part of storing what's
Okay.
we would qualify as work-related items or materials.
So like if it's bulletin board stuff, if it's textbooks or their classroom library, things like that. Okay, I think we're good with that.
Yes. Then we would go down into 6.29 and 10, and I believe this was both of us. I think we struck this, and I don't think you had any version to it.
No, we were good with
that's
that. It's outdated language. No, but this doesn't apply to anybody that's currently working
Yeah.
here.
Then we are going to get over to 6.214. And with 6.214, just put a hold on that.
Okay,
You'll see in the notes there, a proposal is being prepared by the district. So we'll come back and talk about that another time. Deans, we can pause here and have a discussion. Your language was dean duties outside the regular day. Deans have the expectation to be present for supervision duty, school sponsored activities and athletic events throughout the year. We're good. Struck the language of the 50 hours. And added language of required evening and weekend assignments shall be equitably and reasonably distributed. I had a concern. I was listening acutely when you're talking about how you arrived at the 50 hours because I was curious, because what I did was I took the base salary of a dean at 51,000 and they work 15, 19 hours annually. Hourly rate of pay is 33.57 an hour. So basically that means, at 50 hours, we're asking to be responsible for an amount of work that's less than the hourly rate of even the supplement, or not the supplement, but the amount we've included in their salary to cover those responsibilities. So I felt like the limitation of the 50 hours was a concern. And furthermore, we leaned into the fact that there are those responsibilities that's part of the role of a dean, and whether we just discuss it or say it, the deans are typically those folks that have those master's degrees where they're working to get experience to become a building admin. But it should be required that those duties are equitably and reasonably distributed, not loaded up on one person or the other. We also discussed that even at schools where there's multiple deans, the equitable and reasonable could even get us into a discussion, because it may be that Brandon has said, I'm happy to go to do the sporting events, but you're gonna, if you'll go take care of all these other events, so they kind of decide who will do whatever. So that's why we felt that equitable and reasonable gave us a little bit of latitude to make sure that however we were going to define that, we could make sure one person wasn't going to be loaded up over and over.
Well, and I know, and I'm actually going to pass it to Kevin to talk to this in just a minute. We do feel that there does need to be a cap though. And so when I did it out with the $33 an hour, you know, that's 75 hours. There needs to be some type of parameter, because right now, again, their schedules are erratic. You know, they might be staying 30, 40 minutes, you know, each day because of supervision issues. And then they're asked to do athletics if they're secondary. And so there has to be some type of cap. You know, just because they get a $2,500 added into their base pay now doesn't mean that we ask them to work an extra hour a day. That's 180 hours a year. And you know, it could be even more if it's an athletic event later. And so I do want to pass this to Kevin, because he's had experience at the high school and at the middle school level as a dean.
It's definitely higher
Hold on.
at a,
Wait for the mic, please.
it's definitely a lot more responsibility at a high school than I would say at middle school. And I understand your point that you're saying about, you know, their future, they're looking for those experiences. And while I can certainly agree with you, the pay disparity between an assistant principal, a principal, and a dean are far apart. You know, so when you're asking your assistant principals and your principals to cover that stuff, and they're making $80,000-$90,000 a year, and you got a dean making 50, you know, to think that those people are going to be equitable and share that responsibility across the board, I think that's a big ask. You know, even the $2,500, while you're throwing that into a salary, that's also because those people have master's degrees, and that's part of the requirement for that job. So if you're going to ask that these people have master's degrees, then yeah, they should certainly make something more than the teacher who only has to have a bachelor's. You know, but to sit there and put them in the same category as they should work the same amount of hours as assistant principals and principals, I think that's a big ask when you have such a big discrepancy in their salary.
Any remarks? So I would just offer, you can review that and bring us a counter back to our language that we had proposed. And then below that, you'll notice, I think that all duties and events outside of the contractual day must be.
You reworded it up
Just
top.
reworded it and struck that. So, I want to remind everybody too, whenever we talk about these caps, the numbers, hear you. When we talk about the flex time, mutually agreed, we have to think about the mechanisms of how and who and how that's all going to be tracked. Because when we're sitting across the table and we say, John Smith has been used for 83 hours, you know, that burden of documentation has to fall somewhere as well. So the more we put in these hard numbers, these hard caps, we're creating more layers of work either for the dean themselves or otherwise. So we'll keep that in mind as well. The next one I think is 6.3 planning. And in the spirit of what had been discussed earlier, I struck the non-classroom personnel because we see teachers as all teachers. There shouldn't be a discrimination of what you do. And that's the next logic for the stricken language for the non-personnel having access to the planning periods and everything. We would offer that the language that's already in the contract would apply to them as well.
So then we're, just in case this ever comes back, because it does every single year, you know, instructional coaches say they don't have any planning time that's self-directed. You know, deans don't have self-directed time. You know, we've got to make sure that our principals understand that anybody that falls under the teacher contract, while they may not be your traditional teacher, they also get self-directed plan time. Our ESC facilitators get self-directed plan time. Our OTPTs get self-directed plan time, to do whatever they need to do for their caseloads. So we need to make sure that our building administrators and our directors that are over these people understand that on their calendars, and I'll use ESC facilitators as an example, that they have 45 minutes in their lunch blocked off on their calendar so that meetings aren't just taken up with that time. And so that's what we were trying to get at here, is making it very clear that those people that are in these non-classroom, not traditional roles also get every provision that's in this contract.
I respect that and hear that. I'll probably move to the next point.
Okay.
So next we get into the stricken language of, I don't know if you struck this or I did.
We did.
Good faith effort must be made. So it begins with the principal or designee must ensure equitable scheduling.
Mm-hmm.
And then down to the new language.
You're good
if a
with
teacher
that.
Loses, yeah, the first two. Then down to the language of if a teacher loses, they're self-directed. We struck that language. And added new language where we would offer the old language, or what you presented says, if a teacher loses their self-directed plan time due to the meetings outlined above, and that would be due to an IEP
Mhm.
504 BIP, then the administrator will forfeit their PLC. We value our PLCs. We're going to do everything we can to preserve that, much like you do for your plan time for your teachers. The next statement, administrators will make reasonable efforts to minimize interruptions to self-directed planning time. When such planning time is lost due to required meetings, the administrator and teacher will identify an appropriate opportunity to restore equivalent planning time. So we're making the provision that we acknowledge that the schedules sometimes just get crazy. Sometimes it happens. We respect that, and then we would be in a position to restore that planning time at a
We'll
time
accept that.
agreed to. And then I think we just cleaned up.
Yeah, that was yours.
the
The supplemental pay app was yours.
Supplemental pay was easy. 6.3-1 was just your strike through, I believe, because we had offered that it was already established in another article.
Yes, that has not been the practice since I've been in this seat. And so we were cleaning that up so that they get a 45-minute plan time, just like secondary teachers do, that there's no splitting of that planning.
And we didn't have any
Yeah.
versions of that.
Okay,
We
perfect.
leaned into that. Then we keep moving over to 6.38, planning time during testing. And this language was where we just struck it with respect to when testing schedules are implemented, the administrator will make efforts to keep teachers normally scheduled by their day intact when possible. If not possible, teachers who lost planning time due to testing schedule must still receive an average of 45 minutes. We still are seeking to preserve the PLC time during those weeks.
So it's a common practice for most of your principals, especially in the springtime testing, that they are not doing PLCs at that point. And so we wanted to make sure that we were getting back as much time as possible during those crazy spring, especially the spring windows. And so at that point in the year, most of your principals are not doing PLCs. And so we were looking to capture that.
That's good salient information. I made a note of it.
Okay.
Thank you. Then we go down to 6.38. Then we go down to 6.39. Planning time for ESC classroom teachers. ESC classroom teachers who are responsible for writing IEPs. Struck that language, not out of any disrespect, but if we look back over into existing language where we define planning time and otherwise, it specifically offers that IEPs are a part of what already happens in established planning time, that we're already working hard to preserve with our 30-minute lunch, with our teacher planning periods, the PLCs and the collaborative planning. So that's why that was stricken, because we feel that that's already covered in planning time.
Well, I can appreciate that, and we can appreciate that as a team. What we're asking our ESC teachers to do right now that are in charge of writing IEPs, I would say probably all of them are working hours after their contract time to get IEPs done, because the caseloads are too much. We keep putting more and more and more on people, and then not giving them any time to do it.
So totally recognize that and appreciate that. And perhaps looking into 6.310 may help a little bit with
Okay.
that. 6.310, planning time for ESC facilitators and specialists. The ESC facilitator and specialist should generally have no more than 2 IEP meetings. We recognize that, scheduled per workday, to ensure that enough planning time is provided to effectively gather data, write, and help implement quality IEPs for the students assigned to their caseload. So we're leaning into the 2 with that. Generally, the 2 IEPs is where we need to be a day. Exceptions may occur due to student needs, legal timelines, or unforeseen circumstances, provided reasonable efforts are made to preserve adequate planning and preparation time. I think that it's important that you see that we're looking to help preserve adequate planning and preparation time.
We're okay with 6.310.
Okay.
We'll come back and revisit 6.39.
Then we continue on. I don't believe there's any. I think the next thing we get into is 6.65, the meal piece. Brooke, the meal language piece, we're
Mhm.
talking about breakfast and lunch.
Yep.
And then you can see our counter down below that. I can read through all of yours as you did again, but if you'll just take a look at the new language.
Mhm.
The district will make reasonable efforts to provide bargaining unit employees at school sites where student lunches are served the opportunity to purchase available breakfast and lunch meals through district food service operations. Excuse me. Employee meal pricing and eligibility shall be determined by the district in accordance with the applicable law and operational requirements. So we're just trying to say where students are served, where students are, where schools are, where students are. We're going to make sure they have access to whatever the employee pricing is for those lunches, and they have access to them.
So that's not any different than what happens now.
It would not be, and that's not a cost that we would be able to at any time take on in that regard.
A question that we have with this, and I know this gets into federal program with the meal service through the USDA. Because we do have the USDA grants so that no student in Polk County has to pay for breakfast or lunch. If we can do some research, what would be the parameters if there was a food table, like if there's unwanted food and it's unopened, and that could be even available for students, that what always turned my stomach was watching perfectly good food go into a trash can. And so if that is available, and I don't know what the parameters of the USDA grant are, but if we could dig in and do some research on that, what is the opportunities to have a table set aside and not having it out all day, but during the times when lunch or breakfast are being served, that is somebody could come pick it up, and if they have an unopened milk or an apple or a banana or a box of cereal that just wasn't opened or eaten, that being available to both staff and students.
So I like where you're going, and I like where that could go. And what I'm going to say is I have to leave a space to talk to Katie.
Yep.
To look at all of our legal parameters.
Okay.
I have concern that it might not be able to change hands. I have that concern. If that is not the case, we will research that and
Okay.
report back to you.
All right. Thank you.
6.6 itinerant staff access to office classroom space. This particular language, we struck, the language you had put in there, where it was saying that, they be provided with a quiet, non-student area with desk, table, and a chair to plan and have meetings as appropriate each assigned location. If the area is not lockable, the desk must have a lockable area to secure belongings while on campus. We struggle at many of our campuses with respect to, designated classrooms and fish capacities. We have relocatables, on a lot of those campuses. So we are providing a counter proposal that may assist in respecting the needs of our itinerant staff, while providing them space and some security. The language would read as follows. The district will make reasonable efforts to provide itinerant employees with access to workspace suitable for planning, confidential discussions, and work-related duties at assigned locations, subject to available space and operational needs. Where a dedicated lockable room is available, reasonable means for securing work-related materials may be provided. It's basically saying, we're gonna work to schedule you the appropriate workspaces you need to do your job. And if we have the space, then we're gonna work to secure it for you and do that. We just can't do that across every situation, but the spirit of what we have put here is to assist and work with our itinerant staff as follows.
I mean, and the concern is that especially when you have more than one site, obviously you're a tenant, you have more than one site, is that you're being asked to come in and do a job at a school, and maybe you're at a school 3 days at one school and 2 days at another school as an ESE facilitator. If you don't have a space to do that work, or it changes each time, like you're not as efficient with your time, you're looking for another space, people might not even be available to put you somewhere else. And so that is a concern if we're looking at even just using time efficiently. If I'm coming into a school, if I don't have a dedicated space, I probably don't feel very welcomed at that school either, in doing those jobs. So having dedicated spaces is very important, for our itinerant staff. And so, question, we would like to change the word may to will. So if a lockable room is unavailable, reasonable means for securing work-related materials will be provided. Because they should have an area, if they are having to move about, that they shouldn't have to worry about where their purse or their backpack is, things like that. What if they have medication that they personally have to take, and if it's unsecured, we've dealt with those disciplines too.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
So we will change may to will, and I think we could get to where we need to be on itinerant staff, helping them have a space to do their jobs.
yeah, and what actually from one of our itinerant staff, she's saying schools don't want to allow to have a space to work, only to have meetings. So having a space to work, and actually, if they're writing IEPs, they need a dedicated space to work and have access to printers and copy rooms and things like that. So I'll double check, when we caucus, we'll double check with our team to see if this meets the need or if we need to bring something else.
Thank you. Then we go through no changes. I think 6.7 is all of our committees. When we get down to 6.75, there was a change from May to months. I think that was your change.
Yeah.
We didn't have any problem with that.
Awesome.
And 6.76. The committees described in Article 6.7. Oh, that's all of them above. Okay. So that was all of the committees. I think it's the duties, the curriculum, the safety. The language you presented says if they meet after the regular duty day, then instructional staff on one of the above committees will either be paid at the regular rate of pay or be provided mutually agreed upon flex time to use within that school. I added the language during the regular work. I struck yours because I wanted to discuss the expectation that no different than any other work or meetings we have with faculty meetings or otherwise, whether the time is before school or after school, that it should occur during the regular day. And we're not talking about multiple meetings. It says that we're going to have 4 per year.
Mhm.
So, I was trying to keep this simple with
Okay.
the work being required to be done within the workday.
So, obviously we're okay with during the regular workday because that was our language. But we are gonna be, rejecting the including early release days because that is self-directed time.
Okay.
And then talking through the flex time again with this, if they are, let's say a committee does need to meet outside, will they be offered flex time or do we want to just keep it during the regular workday period?
I would like to take that back to my committee as well.
Okay,
I don't think it's a closed door, but I want, like you and caucus, want to talk to my team as well.
okay.
So, 6.8 was just a very simple.
Yep. Adding a title.
sporting events. Then we come on down to 6.93. Title One. This was language you had presented that offers that basically teachers at a Title I school don't turn in plans per federal Title I guidelines. They can turn in the plans to the designated site administrator in any format they choose annually, once per year. I struck it until you can help me with the following. The first thing I did was made some calls. I did some Googling and searched out onto ed.gov,
Mhm.
searched US DOE, asking about Title I federal guidelines that says we submit plans once annually.
Mhm.
I couldn't find it. So I'm just asking
Mhm.
if you can provide me your citation that says here for that school year per federal Title I
Mhm.
guidelines. If you can just cite
Well,
that back.
Actually, where it came, we're perfectly fine leaving it as is and not having that, but then what we've been told year after year when this lesson plan language came into effect 5 years ago, maybe, was that Title I had the requirement for audits that you had to have lesson plans turned in. And so we get calls every year saying, well, I don't have to turn in my lesson plans. We're like, well, if you're Title I, and we've always run under that assumption that they did, but if you couldn't find it, then that needs to be corrected and Title I schools shouldn't be turning in lesson plans at the end of the year. So we're perfectly fine with the strike
So we
through.
will strike the language. from
Yep.
Title.
That's perfectly fine. And then, so just, if we weren't able to find it, then Title I schools do not need to submit lesson plans at the end of the
I would
year.
qualify, they would submit lesson plans like any other school is required.
Well, that's what I'm saying. We don't
Yeah.
have the submission of, unless it's after a unit and things like that. All right.
And so arguably, any of those submissions, like any other traditional non-Title I school, those plans could then be used as the artifacts to be uploaded for Title I purposes or otherwise. I'm gonna stop there before I get too far out of my lane, but we would treat them like other schools.
Perfect.
6.10 was, let's see. This was the one where if you just skip to the bottom, it says proposal being prepared by district.
Okay.
So we'll pause there.
Okay. We figured that's a big one.
Yeah.
All right. Perfect. Well then, so that does with 6. So let me get set up here because we owe you a lot of counters now at this point. All right. So we will go ahead and start with you had proposed a change to teacher article 15 on the 25th of June. We'll start with that. This is going to be an easy one. We are rejecting it outright. It works very well the way it's working right now. And this is put in place and has been in the contract for a long time. You had proposed to strike through in teacher 15.2.1 with evaluations, that if an instructional employee requests, he or she shall be evaluated by his or her principal. That is longstanding language that we are not willing to give up. And this is really for if you feel that an assistant principal isn't evaluating you correctly, or if you feel like you're being targeted, whatever the reasons might be, that your principal should have the obligation and responsibility to evaluate you as the boss on campus. And if a lot of people are requesting the principal to do their evaluation, that should be red flags for the principal. And so that's a mechanism in which we have to alert that maybe something's being done wrong by us or being done wrong by a group of people. And so we are not willing to give up this language. So we reject that strike through. We have language counters for everything else, but I wanted to put that out there first.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So we will start with Article 22. And I actually have a guest appearance today, a school psychologist that's going to help us out with some of this. But let me get 22 for you guys. Great. We actually, I know you had a few things, in 22.1.1, there were some subsections of that. And then in, 22.2.6 and then 22.2.7, we'll go through that. On the 22.6, we're fine with striking that, and I'll get through that when we, go through the rest of the counter. And we are good with moving the current 22.20 and 21 under subsection 7. We're okay with moving that language there. And we are also okay with adding the subsection 22.7.3 with the special activity pay and defining that through Appendix D. And so we're good with that. Where we have a counter, we're almost fully rejecting the strike through and the additions for the flexible contracts for school psychologists and then everyone else who is on the student services. When we put this out to the student services contract to look at, I had never gotten so many emails in my life from one group of people. And that was a good thing because they were providing really good feedback. We had put out a form for them to look at and provide feedback. And so we're going to actually be proposing to move social workers and speech language pathologists into the sub A group with school psychologists. And then leaving mental health counselors, facilitators, and school counselors where they're at. And I'm actually going to bring up Amanda Leach now. She's a school psychologist that's been with the district for a long time. She was, I believe, on TIAC at its inception, and served on TIAC for a very long time. And she has been talking to other school psychologists and speech language pathologists and social workers about the negative impacts of what this would look like for them.
I will say there was a really, really big reaction to this because the language proposed here basically makes people want to leave our district immediately because it kind of says the mental health people don't matter, which is a horrible feeling when you're in this district because we say it matters all the time, right? So the proposal would mean that we would ask people to work. So we were going to ask the school psychologist to work the extra month when they do that 11 plus, lose 11 days of pay because that changes the 247 to a 236 contract. So you're going to lose money while we change this length. And you're not going to get vacation days. So everyone in this room who works 12 months gets their vacation days for their own mental health to take when needed, right? You're going to ask your mental health people to do that 11 plus contract and not get that same respect. And we've already done it. That's the really sad part because we did it to the people on that little line B where we're asking speech language pathologists to go ahead and just do some plus, do that extra 20 days, but you're not going to get vacation. That's a really big red flag when you're looking at that, okay? We have, I don't know if everyone knows what we do, right? So during that month, our departments don't stop. They keep going. So yes, we have 10-month people. 10-month people need to be able to be 10-month people. We are already in critical shortage area. We have 6 school psychology positions we can't even fill and have to contract. Each school psychologist serves between 3 to 4 schools. So that's that many schools without a designated school psychologist because we can't fill our positions. So now we have 5 school psychologists who are 10-month, and if we go make them be 11-month, they'll probably quit and just go to another district. The other districts pay more. We're here in Polk County because we want our kids, right? We're here for them. So that really negatively impacts. 15 school social workers are 10. So it was originally that we were balancing. So our 12 months worked to balance our 10 months. So that way nobody got left out. With the vacancies that we have, our 12-month people are actually filling those holes. So just to give you numbers, our 12-month psychs during that one extra month, we do 82 evaluations this summer. 82 children got evaluated for ESE, which timelines, we all have all these timelines that we have to meet by law. Otherwise, we miss indicators which affect our whole district, and we get under corrective action all the time for missing timelines because we don't have enough people. They did 51 eligibility meetings. This is 6 people. Did 51 eligibility meetings to be able to meet timelines, get kids. We have these kids that transfer from Part C to Part B. I mean, they're going from 3-year-olds up to 4-year-olds, and they have to, by law, have their IEP done by 3 years old. That means everyone that gets placed in June and July has a June and July birthday. This district has to place them. You need the school psychologist or the SLPs there to represent their stuff and do the IEPs. Without them, we can't do it. We have 57 incoming referrals just in my department. So I'm a little bit different. I'm a pre-K school psychologist, so I'm not.
Amanda
the
Leach.
K through 12.
How many was the last number?
The 51 eligibility meetings,
No, the next one.
the 82.
Incoming, you said
I'll hand you.
57.
I had 57 incoming referrals in
That's,
my
yeah,
department.
yeah. 57.
So I'm the little babies. So I'm before they get to kindergarten. Okay, I'm a little bit different. There's only 2 of us that work the 12 months. So I go from a staff of like 21 people to 2 over that month, where we're representing the whole district for any child 3 to 5 that gets referred. We had 57 referrals during that time. Now, can you imagine if your child came in and you wanted to get your kid tested and it took a month for somebody to talk to you? Especially when it's a kindergartner kid going into kindergarten. So I tested alone 23 kids this summer. And I'm usually in a team of 3, and I was me. Okay. And I did 23. We had 25 kids that we sent on to kindergarten without being evaluated because we don't have enough people. Which means those kindergartners need help, usually day 1, and they couldn't be tested during the summer. It's just very overall reaching whenever you look at and say, oh, those who build don't need to be 12 months. And I personally, I do everything I can for this district, but I'm not going to work that entire summer when there's nobody here to keep things moving and keep working for families and kids and be told, you don't need to be on vacation whenever everyone else is back. That's not fair to anyone's mental health, right? And we have timelines we have to meet. If a parent comes in on June 5th and says, I want my kid evaluated, we have till July 5th, when everyone's on vacation, to respond to that. Otherwise, they can sue us because we didn't meet timelines. So there's just a lot of things that go on in our personal fields that language really impacts, and we can't do. We would have more speech language pathologists, and I know every one of you here, if you're at this table, you have heard how the speech language pathologists have been impacted, how overloaded they are, how we don't have enough of them, how we can't serve our children. You would have more SLPs who are willing to do the summer and work that 12-month if they were actually put up onto our language where they got that vacation time. And we need those people desperately during the summer to kind of get some of this testing under control.
Thank you.
And so to everything that Amanda said, and thank you, Amanda, for talking to your groups and getting that data together because it's so important. And I know that sometimes unintended consequences when we're looking at 50,000 foot levels and procedures that we forget about how it impacts people and how it actually impacts kids over the summer. And so we do not want that to be an unintended consequence of not allowing the flexible time. And I heard on the opposite side, you have people that want to work the 12-month, get their vacation so that they can serve kids in the summer, get them staffed, and then take vacation later in the year, right? So that they actually get some time off. But then on the flip side, you have people that are in school psychologist roles, in social worker roles, that are in speech language pathologist roles, and even everybody else in the student services that need a 10-month because of their family situation. Right. And so being able to have that flexible time to where they can bump down to a 10 to allow for a 12-month so that the financial impact is minimal, so that we can continue to serve students. I think that was an unintended consequence that we saw when we put this out to the people that do the work every day. So we are proposing that social workers and speech language pathologists actually be moved up to the school psychologist 22-1-1A, so that they can get true 12-month vacation time because those services are needed. And again, the impact is minimal as long as we're allowing for that flex down of 10, which a lot of people still want to flex down. And so that is our proposal for that. Do you have questions before I move on with that?
I was just again gonna say thank you for the research, the
Mhm.
presentation, and we hear you. And we'll take this back for
Okay.
discussion in caucus.
All right, thank you. All right, so moving on to page 2. We are asking, and actually this is in the first part too, we're specifying that deans are not on the teacher schedule anymore. They have their own like salary schedule. And so that's just cleanup language in the first part, making sure that deans have their own dedicated schedule that's already in our contract. And then looking at 22-1-2, JROTC instructors. This has been something that we've gone back and forth with for a while. And talking to the JROTC instructors, if they choose military pay, the military pay is not compensating them for their advanced degrees. And so we are proposing that if a JROTC instructor opts to be paid on the military instructor pay, they will still receive eligible advanced degree supplements as outlined in Appendix C, so that they are honored and they are respected for the advanced degrees that they hold. We are proposing to strike through the Polk Virtual School language since Polk Virtual School doesn't exist anymore. 22-2, experience credit for the salary purposes. We wanted to add a clarifier in that teachers hired for the first time in Polk County will be placed. This is the new language using the initial placement matrix. And so that we're saying that over and over again. And so on page 3, looking at the problematic language from the Florida Public School teaching experience, we are proposing to strike through that last sentence. And the strike through is when experience credit has been earned by a current district teacher, but not granted for the prior year, newly hired teachers shall also have the credit withheld for that year until the current district teachers and newly hired teachers are granted the credit simultaneously. Doing research on our end, this was placed in when we still had automatic levels and there was a freeze, I believe, that year. And so we, at that point, didn't want any new hire to leapfrog an existing teacher, right? Because there was a freeze band, I think back in 15-16, right? Or 14-15, I forget which one, but there was a freeze band. And so we didn't want incoming teachers to leapfrog existing teachers on the placement schedules or on years of experience. And so, but with the decompression of the teacher schedule, minus we have the little small band to contend with now because of how we did salaries last year, that is a moot point. It's irrelevant now. And so we're proposing to strike through that language. And we have an addition when it says a year of experience on the salary schedule will be allowed when a teacher works 1 day more than 1/2 of the days of a full contract year. We wanted to add in as defined and verified by the previous employer, because we have some school districts that pay 7.5. We pay 7.75 hour days. There are some school districts that do 8-hour days. And so we wanted to make sure that they were working at least a half a year plus 1 day based on the schedule of the previous employer. Because we've had some issues, and I know this is a para contract issue, but it's an example, is that their hours that the school district, I think up north worked was like a 6-hour day, but they were considered a full-time employee. And we weren't giving them a full year of credit for that work, even though it was verified. So that's the reasoning behind that addition there. And then going to page 4 of 11, to 22.5-4, JROTC extended contracts. Right now, JROTC gets about 5 days for extended contract to do their summer teams and summer drill camps and things like that. And we want to codify that. And so we have 2 sections here for JROTC extended contracts with summer teams. JROTC instructors who work for JROTC student summer teams will receive 5 extended contract days. If any required responsibilities for these student summer camps that go beyond the regular 7.75 hour day will be paid at the instructor's regular hourly rate of pay. And then part B, a required summer conference. They have a required summer conference to maintain being a JROTC instructor through the whatever military branch that they're a part of. So if a JROTC instructor attends their required summer conference, they will receive up to 5 extended contract days with appropriate documentation of the summer conference agenda with start and end dates of the conference. And from my understanding, that is an every 2-year conference for them to maintain their ability to be a JROTC instructor. So it'd only have a financial impact every other year. In page 5, and stop me at any point if you have clarifying questions. Okay. So page 5 of 11, we accept your strike through with 22.6, the summer school offerings, for technical colleges, because it's already addressed down further, in general summer school stuff. In the 22.7, we are accepting your move. And I had put that in red. This was management proposal 2220. It's the same language. So we just moved that there. And then we accept the 22.7.3 special activity pay with a slight change. And we are wanting to strike through the word assigned or and add mutually agreed to. So it would read special activity pay as outlined in Appendix D is defined as compensation provided to instructional employees for performing mutually agreed to and approved duties that are not part of the primary instructional responsibilities, contracted teacher pay or job description, which they serve operational, extracurricular, supervisory, or organizational needs. And so we didn't want it to seem like a supervisor could just direct them to work outside of their contract, that it needed to be mutually agreed to before they get that. So like my supervisor couldn't assign me Saturday supervision duty, you know, if it's a disciplinary thing, that it needed to be mutually agreed upon. Okay. All right, and then 22.8 high school and middle school 22.9 and 22.10. We're looking to bring this language all in to read the same. Because we have a discrepancy between how we treat secondary all-day assignment versus elementary all-day assignment right now, and we want it to all be congruent. And so we're looking to propose for high school and middle school, adding in a sentence to the existing language. And I'll read the whole section because it's not very big. So at the request of the superintendent, a high school teacher may volunteer on a semester basis to teach all student contact time and be paid 1/6 of his or her salary for the semester, current practice. All scheduling options must have been exhausted before an administrator will receive permission for this variance. And so that would be the addition we are proposing in both the middle school and high school sections. Elementary was done differently, and maybe I don't know where that started from. It's been a long time practice. But we want it to be in line with what we do at secondary, that if they're teaching an all-day assignment and giving up their planning time, that they're also receiving 1/6 of their salary. Because when we did the math out, that's about a $2,000 difference for them between what secondary is getting for all day assignment and what elementary would get for all day assignment. I don't think it happens as regularly in the elementary school as we see, probably particularly at high schools. I don't even think it happens as much even at middle schools on the rare occasion. But we wanted to make sure that if we are doing, as we're kind of bringing all of our pay practices in for the same types of procedures, that elementary was brought in to a sixth of their salary if they do an all-day teaching assignment. And so that language mirrors the middle school and high school. And then flipping to page 6. Oh, that was just a continuation to make it mirror. So moving on to page 7. The highlighted part, I actually wanted to talk through because we didn't have a solution. And so as we are, this is way different, right? Because we're on once a month pay for some folks, and then we have twice a month pay for other folks. And so this seemed kind of like it's not relevant anymore, but I didn't know if we should strike it or if we should clean it up to be what's in practice. But we didn't have anything to really propose because we weren't sure. And so we wanted to bring that language to your attention so that we could work through what this needs to look like, because it's very old. So just wanted to bring that to you guys. So 2217, you find all kinds of nuggets when you read through articles that you haven't read through in a while. 2217, we ran into this with some of our folks that had went to charter leave over the summer. They didn't understand the holdback options. And so nothing was done procedurally wrong. It was just not clear to them what their holdback options were if they're going on an approved leave. And so we were proposing to add in applicable holdback payout options will be clearly provided on applications for an approved paid or unpaid leave of absence, so that people understand what their options are when it comes to holdback. Do they get it all paid out? Do they want it regularly scheduled? You know, those types of things, so that people understand and they're clear when they are taking an approved leave of absence. Okay, at the bottom of page 7, that's just moving those subsections as you guys had proposed. Page 8. For overpayments, under 22.22-1. We know that overpayments haven't been happening as much. But we still occur, they occur from time to time still. And so the first part of this article reads, the repayment of overpayment shall occur as soon as reasonably possible following notification. Repayment schedules shall be reduced to writing and show total amount owed and the dollar amount of each installment with the end date. We are proposing to add this sentence. Employees must be given at least 5 working days to review payment options and select which repayment option they choose. Because the rest of that article part says, in the event that the employee will not agree to a repayment schedule, recovery of the overpaid sum shall not exceed 3% of the gross pay per pay period until the repayment plan is satisfied. We want to make sure that before people's money is taken out of their checks with overpayments, that they have selected, because some people want to just pay it back right away, right? And that they don't want a repayment option. They just want to, get it done. Brandon, when he was a testing coordinator, had been accidentally paid a testing supplement that he shouldn't have been paid. And he's like, no, I want to just give it back. And just making sure people have options and they know what their options are, and that it's reduced in writing too, so that it's very clear which options they chose. And then turning to page 9, mileage reimbursement has been interesting. I am hoping that with Employee Central, it becomes smoother. But we wanted to add some clarifying language into 22.27 with mileage reimbursement. So adding in that the district must pay mileage reimbursements in the end of the month paycheck where the employee submitted the required paperwork by the published end of month payroll deadline. If the employee's schedule requires regular travel between work sites, then the employee may request to use a district-provided fleet vehicle instead of their personal vehicle. If an employee uses a district-provided fleet vehicle, then the employee is ineligible for mileage reimbursement. So offering opportunities if they are traveling a lot, having the opportunity to pick if they want a fleet vehicle instead of using their own personal vehicle. And then we're proposing to strike through 22-28 because that's also not a problem anymore. Back when I think the first paychecks used to be at the end of September, that was a huge problem, right? People couldn't go months without a check. But with the way we have our paychecks set up now, it's not an issue anymore. And so it's just old language that probably needs to be taken out. And going down at the bottom of the page, 22-29-2. This is one of my favorite ones, just so you guys know. At the start of the new fiscal year, every employee will advance one pay level on their salary schedule to maintain the integrity of the initial placement matrix. Any other level movement or pay level enhancements on all teacher salary schedules shall be bargained on an annual basis in addition to any changes to the salary schedules. Then on page 10, and some of these will transfer over into the parent ESP compensation articles, but we wanted to present it here first since this one had substantial proposals. And so on page 10, 22.3-3, we are wanting to add in if the annual financial report has a final assigned/unassigned general fund balance over the board required 5%, then the parties agree to negotiate other salary enhancements. And that was the spirit of this language, but we wanted to put in that board minimum 5% as the trigger for that. And then that concludes Article 22. Let me drink of water. Are there any questions?
No, I'm making notes.
Okay.
Receiving what you're providing to take back.
Okay,
And I have down that we've got Article 15 was the rejection.
yes,
And then what you provided on 22.
yes,
And I think that in a spirit of joking, you must have been a rainmaker on Article 15.
yes, no. All right, so let's go to maybe an easier one to next. We'll look at the fitness for duty. And that is teacher 31. Oh, I think actually, because they got those in the, okay. All right, so overall, we are okay with this language, but we did add a few pieces for clarification. So when we're looking at the fitness for duty, we were good with your first part. Where it said the district has a reasonable and objective concern that employees' ability to safely or effectively perform the essential functions of their position is in question, and striking through what you had suggested to strike. In its judgment, such an examination is relevant to their work performance or employment status. You know, you clarify that in the second part of that. And then you're striking through that other section and then adding in the fitness for duty evaluation. So I'll read it just for clarification purpose, and I'll show you where we have a proposed change. So the fitness for duty evaluation shall be conducted by a practicing physician and or psychiatrist who is not an employee of that employee health clinic and who is selected and assigned through a district contracted third-party fitness for duty service provider. Neither the district nor the association shall select the evaluating physician or psychiatrist, and the evaluator shall have no prior treating relationship with the employee. This process is intended to ensure neutrality, eliminate bias, and obtain an independent medical assessment of the employee's ability to meet the minimum requirements of the position. The Labor and Employee Relations Department shall be responsible for the scheduling of fitness for duty evaluations with the contracted provider. And this is where we have a suggested proposed change. The employee shall be required to, we struck through your timely word and codified it with an actual time frame so that it's not subjective. And so would be required to respond within 48 business hours and to cooperate with the LER for the purposes of scheduling, et cetera. And then our other, and so we're okay with the rest of your language until you get to page 2. We have a clarification that we would like to propose that says when the employee is placed on a paid administrative for fitness for paid administrative leave, it should say leave. That's when I start. On paid administrative leave for fitness for duty, they must sign an acknowledgement of the late cancellation / no-show fees they could incur. Emergency situations will be reviewed by the LER for fee waiver on an individual basis. And then again, we added within 48 hours of the appointment instead of timely, so that there's an actual time frame. But other than that, oh, and what we did, I don't know why the drug-free workplace was a subsection, but we made it its own section of 31.4 and then just renumbered while we were opening the article. And so we have some slight proposals, but overall, we're okay with it.
I'm gonna go back and look at it again, but I think we're gonna be okay too.
Okay.
I like the 48 hours. And I don't see any reason why we're right at issue here.
Okay. Okay, perfect. Okay. Trying to keep all these papers together.
Got a lot of them.
All right, so we will move on into Appendix C. No.
This will be where we finish the night.
This might be where we finish the night.
No, it sounds like we might be here.
We might be stuck here, you never know.
And it's scared of no rain.
All right.
I'll be the last.
Okay, so what we tried to do was highlight the employers' proposals in yellow. As much as we could. Well, I don't know. I tried. It was really hard to kind of meld these together. So I did my best to format it. But I have your proposal next to me so I can cross-reference. Yes.
Because I want to make sure my personnel team and. Because Appendix C is important. This is one we wanted to
Mhm.
call a little bit, provide more definition.
Yes.
We got it all the way down. We're good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And we didn't propose many monetary changes until we know what the AFR is. So we really focus for the most part on language on this, but we will be looking at monetary amounts after we see the AFR. So in Article 14 for teachers will kind of pair into this because that's where supplements are also mentioned and how they're opened and reviewed and applied for and things like that. So we are proposing to add in page 1, see teacher Article 14.41 for process of applying for school-based or program supplements. We are good with your ISS language. That the supplement is applicable to only teachers and a paraeducator basic ISS. No other paraeducator, educational support personnel, or staff member who is not listed in the teacher collective bargaining agreement shall be eligible for this supplement and therefore shall not be assigned to the duty. The ISS duties and supplement will not be split. That was one part that we added. We should not be splitting the supplement. Jessica agrees. That has been a problem that we've had in the past. And so this should go to one person.
Totally agree.
Okay. All right. We added some numbers in, under athletic supplements was number 1, teacher mentors number 2. And then on page 2, we've added a 3, 4, and 5. And so number 3, and this is all new language, participation in casting team decisions involving relatives. Directors and coaches should be included in all cast team decisions, including when their relatives are auditioning or trying out for a team. However, a committee or other coaches should be involved in a joint decision of final casting, team, or position placement to ensure integrity of the selection process is upheld when there is a relative of a decision maker auditioning or trying out. Because, you know, we work in schools where our kids go or our nieces and nephews go. But we're also the drama teacher or we're the head football coach and we're making decisions on whether relatives are cast in a play or they play on the football team, right? And, you know, if you're a head football coach, you want to be a part of that decision. But if it's your kid trying out or your niece or nephew or whoever it might be, there should probably be a committee or other coaches that are involved in that, just to make sure that the integrity of the process is upheld. But you shouldn't be cut out of if you are the head football coach or you're doing a drama production, like you should have a say, but kind of putting some guardrails in so that you're above board for nepotism. Number 4 with chairpersons. So we're talking grade level or department chairs. If grade chair meetings are assigned during the school day, class coverage shall be provided for the grade chairs. Grade chair meetings shall not be assigned during any grade chair's planning time unless flex time is provided where that grade chair can use their at least 45 uninterrupted minutes of planning during that school day. And then number 5, knowing that this is a very big undertaking, but it's necessary work. PEA and PCPS agree to form joint committees to determine minimum and maximum requirements for non-athletic supplemental roles. These committees will comprise of up to 5 bargaining unit employees selected by the PEA president and up to 5 management employees picked by the superintendent. These committees will provide recommendations to the bargaining team by the end of the 26-27 school year. So knowing that this is a huge undertaking, that every position supplement's going to be different, we want to make sure that this is done right and that we're not making assumptions. All right, so going on to page 3. And just as a note, because I think it meant actually, let me go back because I made a note on another paper. When we're talking about head football coaches and athletic directors, what is the reasoning? Because this was before my time. What is the reasoning that we don't allow head football coaches to be athletic directors? Because that question's come up several times, but I don't know the history there.
I'm thinking back in my many decades. And hey, you may be able to say, because you are one of these. I think it's the volume of work, and I also think it was an effort to make sure that everything wasn't built around football. Spending decisions, all of the things, because football tends to be the big sport on most campuses. It draws in the most money. And I want to say that was the rationale, but this long preceded me. I don't know if you have any other
Yes, I do.
history.
Here.
When Coach Hayde, I served as a head football coach in Polk County for 10 years. And that rule has been in place for a long time. Sort of an unwritten rule, and it's also in the contract now. And there's a lot of head football coaches or assistant coaches that would argue that they could be very effective in the role of head football coach as athletic director. And there's very many examples of head football coaches in Polk County that have left this county and served as both athletic director and head football coaches in this state and in other states, as well as serving as college athletic directors as the same time that they were also head football coaches very successfully. And I can name names. Tim Hatton is one, who was a head football coach at Haines City, who was also a head football coach and an athletic director in the Panhandle. Bobby Johns has served as a head football coach an athletic director and president of the FHSAA at the same time. Richie Marsh was a very successful head football coach at Thomasville High School in Georgia at the same time as he was head football coach. And he is the head football coach in Frostproof right now, and would be a fabulous pick again to be an athletic director. Across the country, and when I grew up in where I was from, it was not uncommon at all for head football coaches to also serve as athletic directors and do a wonderful job at positions.
For the record, I don't know, oh, I might not be. Well, for the record, I don't think that was the question posed to me. It wasn't whether I agreed or not.
No.
I was giving historical.
Yeah.
perspective. So, thank you, because
Yeah.
I don't know that we disagree. I think the other thing that I would like to say is the role of the athletic director, particularly at football games, is big. They're taking money, they're managing the game, they're managing the facility. I think that was another historical reason that you couldn't be doing two things at once. So I don't know, but I just respectfully, it's not that you and I disagree, so.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, so looking at, looking at the actual tables now. When I have been in talks with some of our swim coaches, they're seeing the need to add an assistant swimming, boys, girls, just like we added an assistant weightlifting a few years ago with safety. And so we are proposing to add an assistant swimming, boys, girls coach at $1,300, which is the same as the weightlifting that we added a couple years ago. And the note 8 that it references is the same as the assistant weightlifting coaches note, that assisting swimming and diving coaches must have 15 or more official rostered student athletes to be eligible for this supplement, rosters to be verified by the senior director of athletics. So that when we do have bigger swim programs, we have the ability to add an assistant coach there. And then going through, looking at the supplement notes on page 4, going at number 3, this is all fall varsity head coaches, authorized assistant coaches, band directors, and authorized assistant band directors reporting for duty or the first authorized practice shall receive, it's currently $51 a day, and we are proposing their regular hourly rate of pay, provided students are in attendance, and that was current language. With our number 4, the orchestra director, this language has not been touched in a very, very, very long time. And so we are proposing to up the orchestra director supplement from $218 to $500, and the director of 2 high school programs to receive the current high school supplement plus $750. It's currently at $442. Choral director, language is mirrored to the orchestra director. Again, these haven't been touched in a very long time, and so we're proposing to strike through current 218 to 500 and 442 to 750. And I've already gone through the note 8 on the assistant swimming and diving coaches. Okay, so that is all of the changes until we get to page 7, which is where the regular tables start. So we're good with striking through the school counselors because that's now in their base pay. We can take it out of the table. And so with the testing coordinators, your proposal was that they must be in a testing coordinator position. We don't disagree. We're okay with that. But we also want to add that and management cannot assign these duties to another union position. Because what's happened is we've had some school counselors being told that, well, you're the testing coordinator. But they're a school counselor. They're not a testing coordinator. And so you can't have a testing coordinator position be given to somebody else that has another job. And so we wanted to add that caveat in there as well. Teachers of dual enrollment. We're okay with changing it to a semester basis instead of just a full supplement so that it's $1,250 for each semester to equal $2,500. And we're okay with the holding a master's degree. But what was interesting is we had some of our Travis and Ridge Tech folks reach out that said that they would be adversely affected by this because they may not have master's degrees, but they are in their jobs doing dual enrollment and currently getting the dual enrollment supplement because they're at a specialized program, even though they're an expert in their field, right? And so we wanted to propose the caveat that unless the dual enrollment course is being taught through a CTE or a technical college program. So if it's a regular dual enrollment at a regular high school or even a middle school, we agree that a master's degree should be required. But we also know that there's some caveats there that was I think an unintended consequence of the master's requirement. We overall accept your language to split. We have addressed the splitting of supplements in Article 14 that we're going to propose back that has more supplement language in it to provide some parameters on that. But overall, we're okay. And in 14, you'll see this language hopefully tonight, because that's going to be our next one to go into this. That they have to know up front before work is done that they're both getting the supplement, but it's going to be split. So there's no surprises at the end. Because what we don't want to have happen is Brian thinks he's doing 9th grade, department chair, and then all of a sudden he's being asked to split it with somebody that did some things. And so we want to make sure that everybody knows up front if it's being split so that there's no surprises on anybody's part. We are proposing to add in a class coordinator for 9th and 10th grade. We currently have with their class sponsors. So a class sponsor for 9th and 10th grade at $1,000, and then changing the 11th and 12th grade to $1,500. We took what Ms. Collins said to heart last time, and I worked in a high school. The junior and senior class sponsors do a lot of work. And so 9th and 10th grade is not as much, and not as much responsibility. So we're suggesting the different pays at $1,000 and then $1,500. Page 8. Again, I tried to highlight your proposals in yellow so that I didn't get lost as I was going through this. So your proposals are in yellow, and we're good with everything that's in yellow from your side. So clarifying on the academic A team that they must participate in at least 3 district-sponsored practice rounds and tournament. We're good with that. Again, the splits, I'm not going to go through anymore because we're good, if that's upfront and notice to people. On the community service coordinator, we're good with your proposals. Again, submitted to teaching and learning.
They should not put a teacher in learning.
Well, that's what management proposed.
We're gonna change that.
Okay. Would you like it to go, or do you want to get back to us?
You can get back.
Okay,
Straight to Joe.
straight to Joe. Joe McNaughton's the point person. Okay, so you'll get back to us on that. Okay. Going into the chairpersons, we wanted to clarify a little bit more. And so we're overall good with what you've proposed. But we have also added that we want to strike through based on 4, and that there's 3 or more full-time teaching units to make sure that our smaller schools aren't disenfranchised. They're doing the same work. If they're department chair or grade level chair, but we also don't want to disenfranchise smaller schools from not being able to get this supplement if there doesn't happen to be 4 people. But we also added in to where they should be able to get those people on there, because any support staff assigned to that team, we are proposing be able to count in towards the head count there, and long-term substitutes. And that's been a past practice that if a space is being filled, that person does count, but we wanted to codify that. And the last part that we added in is we didn't call it guidance. We just called it counseling. And then we also did a / instructional support, because you might have instructional support people, behavior interventionists that are part of that team. And so that those people would count in that department. So any of your instructional support, behavior, instructional coaches, whatever, would count in that department. We're good with your department nominations for the district science fair and history fair. We also took that because there's district science and history fairs in other grade bands, and that wasn't proposed. And so we added your proposal into the other grade bands where district science and history fairs were present. Okay, so page 9. We're good with striking the federal and district-wide specialists. We don't have any of those anymore. Middle school supplements, we're good with striking the counselor, as we've already said, because it's in their base pay. We are proposing to add in testing coordinators at the middle school and elementary levels. We know that most of your elementaries use APs to do that work for the most part, but some of your bigger middle school or bigger elementary schools, might need a full-time testing coordinator. So we wanted to make sure that they were also getting that supplement at the middle school and the elementary school as applicable. Middle school team leaders, this was the only place it was different than the chairpersons. So we added chairpersons grades 6 through 8, again, with 3 or more full-time units, because none of that was codified in the middle school part. And then we mirrored the departments like we did in high school. Again, good with A team, participating in 3 district sponsored practice rounds. Moving on to page 10. Making sure that the televised instruction facilitator at middle school is added in. We're, good with that. Science labs at the middle school, we are proposing to add, that mirror what the high school science labs get and do. Because they are doing the same types of work with their science labs, and we want to make sure that they have access to those resources. And we're good with the safe and drug-free schools contact person that you proposed. Going to 11, in the elementary school supplements, again, school counselors we're good with. We've added in a testing coordinator at elementary so that they can have that ability, especially if they're a bigger elementary school. Like Horizons, those Bella Cita, even with the K-5 part, as we get bigger schools, we want to have that ability, because also talking to your APs that are over that, like, that's an impossible task that you're asking them to do. And so if we can have a person dedicated to that, instead of the APs doing that at bigger elementary schools, I think that would be helpful to your APs as well. For the elementary grade level chairperson, again, striking 4 or more to 3 or more, again, for smaller elementary schools, to make sure that those departments are getting those supplements because they're doing that work. We mirrored the language to any support staff assigned to that grade level, or any long-term subs would count into that head count for the department. And then we specified elementary grade chairs include pre-K, K, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth if elementary, ESE specials and electives, and counseling and instructional support. School coordinator for the district science fair. It wasn't here and it was proposed in other places. So, from your side, so we have proposed to add in so that it's congruent, the departmental nomination with review by principal and department submits, request for payment. And then moving to page 12. At the bottom, the JROTC instructors are getting information back to me. They were not in favor of splitting their supplements. They're actually looking at ratios to see if they would be eligible for more supplements depending on how many teams they have. And how many kids. So we're getting that information back, but they're doing 3 more teams now. They're doing drone team, archery team, and robotics teams. And so we are proposing to add those supplements in at $2,600 like the other supplements are. And then on page 13, the designated health contacts. Let me get to your language. think we just changed the wording around because it read kind of weird. And so we're okay. We just kind of moved the sentence around. But we're good with the language. Critical shortage. We're good with that clarification because it's very clear in the DOE annual memo, and that memo does change every year. And so if you got a critical shortage supplement last year, depending on the DOE memo this year, you may be eligible again or you may not be. And so for teachers that are in critical shortage areas in the past, make sure you're checking that DOE list. That is past practice right now. We're good with clarifying that for the grandfathered schedule, for the highly effective, you have to be on a grandfathered schedule. And we just said, we crossed out instead of the grandfathered salary schedule, we said a grandfathered schedule because there's several now. So just to make sure that there's no confusion there. We had been brought forward from the visual impaired teachers that they do the same types of things as the lead sign language interpreter does. And so they are asking for a lead visual impaired teacher, one supplement district-wide paid in a prorated monthly installment of over 10 months at $4,000, just like the sign language lead, because they do similar work. And so we are codifying the ESOL TRST with the MOU we had just signed, so codifying that in Appendix C. And it wouldn't let me delete page 15, so there is no page 15, just wanted to be clear on that. Just need to be clear. I was tired of fighting with Microsoft Word at that point. So that is our proposal encounter for Appendix C.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes.
So let's look at teacher 14. And that kind of goes in with the supplements.
This is new. Yeah, I have one proposal.
Did you guys get? Or do I have to? You guys got one?
Criteria.
When we were in the room?
Correction.
14? You didn't get 13? Okay, sorry.
They already got it in there.
Yes. Yeah, so with 14, you guys had brought in just cleanup. Again, when you start reading through articles, you see things that were maybe previously missed. We absolutely need people to have a Florida Department of Education teaching certificate, so we're obviously okay with that proposed change to make sure that that is clear. When I was looking through 14, because the language that's in 14 was originally in Appendix C, and as I was going through 14, we felt that it was more appropriate to put it here because it was already referenced here under supplements. So if we look at 14.4 supplements, we are looking to add, and the substance of the language is on page 2. Current language right now that we're looking to strike because our language incorporates this. Would be open supplemental positions as shown in Appendix C, must be advertised for 5 working days. Teachers interested in a supplemental position at their school work site will notify their principal or director of their interest on the intent to return letter for consideration of future vacancies. Vacancies for supplemental positions must be advertised within the school where the vacancy occurs to all employees for 5 work days. And then if the end of the 5 days, school worksite posting, the position is not filled, it will be advertised externally on the district's webpage. And so we're looking to add language there, which the stricken through language is incorporated into what we've added. So what we're proposing to add is supplement assignments excluding athletics, because athletics has their own qualifications and whatnot. Principals, directors of a program, or their designee will advertise each supplement under their purview that the school is eligible to fund for the next school year to all employees by the first workday of May. Any employee interested in performing the duties of a supplemented role will submit their interest in writing to their principal or designee or director by May 15th or the last workday before May 15th. If a supplemented role is vacant as of the first day of pre-planning week, then the principal or director of program or designee will advertise the opening on the first day of pre-planning. Any employee interested has until the last day of pre-planning to submit their interest in writing to their principal, director, or designee. If a supplemented role is vacant and must be filled after the first student day, the principal or director of program or designee will advertise the vacancy to all employees and provide 5 workdays for the employees to submit their interest in writing. The next sentence is existing language in 14.4.1, but we're proposing to move it here. If at the end of the 5-day school worksite posting, the position is not filled, it will be advertised externally on the district's webpage for employees and non-school employees. If a supplement is eligible to split into a 50% supplement for 2 employees performing a single role, that must be mutually agreed to in writing by the primary supplemented employee and the secondary supplemented employee and the principal director before duties for the supplemented role are performed. And so that accounts for the splitting in the appendix C. Determination of a supplemented role must consider experience in fulfilling the role and certifications if applicable. If more than one employee is qualified, then district seniority will be used to fill the supplemented role. The principal director of a program or designee has 5 workdays to determine who will work in the supplemented role after the close of the supplement advertisement. And then that's it for 14.
I know one of the things immediately comes to mind, and I'll look at it when we come back with the counter, is we've had occasions where you and I are splitting the supplement. You get the money, but you're just gonna write me a check or give me cash. And so
No.
I don't know if we need to come back and put that in here somewhere.
Well, and I think that addresses it in the actual appendix when we say that it's eligible to split, because then it's codified up
So
front.
split On our side,
Yeah.
so both of them get.
Yes, and that's why it needs to be agreed to up front.
So if that's where we're going, then I'm
Yeah,
good. I
Yeah,
just want
no,
to
because
make sure.
I agree. We've had issues with that, and that's why I think it's very important to be upfront. And that if Brian and I are gonna both be, ninth grade class sponsor, that our principal and both of us know upfront that we're doing one role, but we're splitting the supplement, and that it's agreed to upfront. And that comes through district payroll, that goes through personnel, and that is on paper. We know that Brian and Stephanie are splitting the supplement. So that Stephanie can't come back and say, I didn't agree to split this supplement. Like, and we know that happens. And so we want to make sure that it's very clear for everybody involved.
And then that's.
Okay. All right, keep on moving. All right, let's go to transfers and Article 17. You guys did this one.
So, sorry.
Yep.
Multitask. We had 17.42.
Okay. All right, so I put it all in one document for full Article 17. So I'll go, when I get to the sections where you guys had proposals on the 25th, I'll stop and recognize that. So in 17.1-2, we are wanting to add and propose that we define full student contact day. If they are asked, if they are given a change of assignment, or they're transferring schools. Because what we don't want is for that to be on an early dismissal day or like a split day or teacher work day, that it is a full student contact day that they get to move their classroom and do the things they need to do. And that's also reflected in 17.1.3. We are also proposing in 17.2 And this is current practice, but we want to make sure that it remains current practice, that all vacancies being filled by a long-term substitute must be posted on the district's jobs website. So we want to make sure that that is codified. We are okay with you striking through applicant registration system, in 17.4.
Ours.
Yeah, that was yours.
No, that was the the acronym was ARS, AR.
Oh, okay.
I faded that acronym from the beginning.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. We are rejecting your proposal to have regional superintendents approve mutually agreed upon transfers in the middle of the semester. We feel that the decision should happen at the closest level possible to the employees. Why add more bureaucratic tape to somebody being able to move if both principals agree to it? I don't think this happens too often, but we are not okay with giving that to a regional. The regional doesn't know the teacher like the principal does, and we are rejecting that. Okay, so we are proposing, we have a strike through, but a rewrite. So at the bottom of 17, kind of in the middle of 17.4, it read really odd. And so we wanted to make sure that it was clear. So we're proposing to strike through the last two sentences, in the middle part. It is the responsibility of the teacher to notify the principals where vacancies exist in order to be considered for the vacancy. The transfer will be subject to approval by the district certification compliance department. So we're proposing that that section reads, it is the responsibility of the employee to submit the intent to transfer through the designated district platform. The employee must apply for open positions and be offered a job to transfer under the provisions of this collective bargaining agreement. And then going down toward the end of 17.4, adding in codified timelines. So a position must be offered by the receiving principal, supervisor, and accepted by the transferring employee by the end of business on the second week of December to be eligible to transfer for the second semester, or by the end of business on the week before the first day of pre-planning. So that way there's clear timelines for people to be able to be offered a job and accept a job, if they are going to transfer the semester. That gives personnel and HR time to move those people and have those folks ready for the start of the second semester. And then going through the next page on page 3. We had a lot of discussion about the 1st or the 16th. And so what we are proposing, so the last sentence on the page, it says after no more than 20 workdays or by the 1st or 16th of each month, whichever is sooner, the teacher will be released to the receiving principal. We acknowledge what Jessica had said when you guys had presented this language, that it's hard when you're transferring in between pay cycles. But we also don't want to inadvertently hold somebody at a work site longer than 20 days. And so we think that this gets to the issue, recognizing that you need to have those people moved, not in the middle of a pay cycle. And then an employee selected to fill an advertised position will be transferred on the 1st or 16th of the month, whichever date is sooner, immediately following the selection of the position. Again, trying to get to what you were trying to say, but not holding them longer than we need to hold them. And then in 17.4.2, you guys had proposed to strike that entire section. We are proposing to rewrite it. And so it is the responsibility of the employee to submit the intent to transfer through the designated district platform. The employee must apply for open positions and be offered a job to transfer under the provisions of this collective bargaining agreement. And then we added in, instead of just saying principal, we have principal/supervisor. Because we also have people in our units that don't have principals, they have directors or supervisors. And then going into 17.6, it mirrors the 1st and 16th language where you see in other places. And then moving on to page 5, this is part of our proposed language. So we are proposing to add 17.68. If an employee was displaced due to loss of unit or change phasing out of a program, but the unit is returned within a year of unit loss, then the displaced employee will have the right to return to their former position if preferred before the reallocated position is advertised or filled by another employee. The employee must have had an overall effective or highly effective evaluation in the position that was lost and be qualified to hold their previous position. And so we've seen that uptick a little bit more with site-based budgeting in place now, where principals will say, and they blame you guys, just so you know, the district told us we lost a unit. Okay. But then that unit's lost, that teacher's displaced. Let's say she is displaced into a 3rd grade classroom. She was a literacy coach, right? Well, now lo and behold, over the summer, that position came back. And now somebody that was at that school is now in that literacy coach position, where that current person was displaced that had highly effective evaluations. And now she's stuck in a 3rd grade classroom and she wants to be a literacy coach. So, and that's just one example, but we've seen that, and it's hard to really nail down, but it's starting to happen more and more. And we want protection for people that it's not a performance issue. It's not that they're not doing what they need to do in their job. They're saying that the unit is lost and then magically the unit comes back. And maybe we have a unit come back because there was more FTE enrolled in that school now, and they can now afford to have a literacy coach. But that person that was displaced, if they want that position back, as long as there weren't performance issues that were addressed through the evaluation system or disciplinary issues that were addressed through progressive discipline, they should be able to go back into that position. Go ahead.
Stephanie, what's your thought on? Is that, I'm seeing a huge amount of, okay, we've got to track every position that's put back in, or is that an employee notifies and says, hey, I noticed my position is back up? And
They're looking, so I think that the
So
employee noticing
I
is
would prefer
fine.
this be an employee responsibility.
Yeah.
rather
We're
than
fine with that.
We monitor that.
Yeah.
So.
No, I think that that's
Yeah.
reasonable. And trust me, they're monitoring it anyway, because that's when we get the calls saying the coaching position's back, and then they put somebody else in and I'm in 3rd grade, and that's a problem. When they were, on all paper, discipline, evaluations, they were doing great at their job. And so we want the ability for them to go back in that position if that position is reallocated back. So if you have something that
May put something in there.
to clear that up, but we're okay with that being an employee responsibility, not a management responsibility. That if they see that they do have that ability to go back.
Help me to write language for you.
Okay,
Stephanie, I just have a question
Yeah,
on that.
yeah.
Um,
wait, hold on.
I think there needs to be a more, I don't know if I'm gonna use the right terms, but a stronger process set out for that type of thing though, because just in the example you gave, if somebody else is hired for it, is it really gonna come down to, hey, we're really sorry that we hired you in this position. Now we have to go back and give it back to the person that originally had it.
Well, this would be, this actually specifically says that before it's allocated back out and for hire, that they would have to offer it back to somebody else.
Because there have been
Yeah.
examples where literally people were given letters that said, hey, you're being displaced because the position no longer exists. And that day,
It was
a
posted.
position is posted
Yeah.
for that same position.
Yeah.
Approved by people on this side of the board that are saying, hey, let's sign off on this. So, I mean, there has to be
Yeah,
let's take a look at that. Like, cause I would hate for somebody to,
yeah,
be offered a position, but if you're saying it's gonna be before, then.
yeah. The language specifically says before anybody's hired. And here's the thing too, that I'll offer is you guys are looking at this on your side. I mean, principals know what units they lost, right? They're in fully control of their site-based budget. They know which positions are lost. And then they know if a position is back, you know, and they now have enough FTE to support a literacy coach to bring that position back, then they should be reaching out to that person before it's offered to step back into that role.
So. Just one point of clarification, when principals lose, they lose funding. So they don't lose a position, they're actually in control of deciding what they want to remove. So you
Yeah,
would,
we know.
okay,
No.
just
No.
clarity.
We know, but I'm also just letting you know, as those conversations start to happen in the spring, they throw the district under the bus every single time. I mean, it's an easy one to do, when you're not there to defend yourself. But that is becoming an increasing problem because you're right, it is tied to funding and then they get to decide. But they also know if they lost a unit or they decided to not allocate for that specific position and now they want to reallocate for it, because maybe their FTE grew or whatever their situation might be, that person that was displaced out of that should get first pick to come back. And then on page 6 of 6, we wanted to propose timelines for non-renewals. And so we are proposing to add language that says annual contract employees who are non-renewed will complete their current contract, which is current, what we do now, but making it very clear to them. And then probationary contract employees who are non-renewed will work through the last student contact day unless they choose to end their probationary contract earlier than the last student day. And I know we've gone back and forth on this. And I think when principals had to make the action to sever it, that it was problematic because we had people that were non-renewed on a probationary contract that ended up somehow rolling into an annual contract because actions weren't taken.
That's my concern.
But if this is clear that if they are non-renewed and that's their last day and that it's programmed in, we think that it solves a few things. If they truly are non-renewed, they would not get an annual contract if that is their last workday and they don't finish their contract out. But it also doesn't put schools in a lurch for that week or few days where they no longer have somebody in that position.
We have agreement, and I like the spirit of it gives us coverage and instruction. I'm gonna go back and talk behind the scenes because like what you've already said, I'll parrot it again. We have to make sure if they're up for that non-renewal of the probation, that it comes off the books because it can't roll over, which was the age old, well, let's give a week before. So
Yeah.
there's times we're sure that it doesn't happen because we've agreed that if they roll over one day
Yeah.
over, we own them.
Mm.
So I just want to look into the logistics
Okay.
of the systemic process of how that happens to ensure those keystrokes happen. So
Okay.
what you've proposed here can occur.
Okay, thank you. All right. And you thought we were gonna end on appendix C.
Yeah. Thank God.
All right, okay, we are gonna move to teacher 20, which we know would mirror into the parent ESP paid leaves as well. But we, again, for printing purposes, since it's the same language, we just printed the teacher article. So we're good with your two proposals in 20, which would then mirror into the other two contracts for their paid leaves. And so I'm gonna just go through the article and I'll highlight. So when in 20.1-3, you had said they will be given notice and stricken out written because everything's online now. And so we're proposing that each teacher will be given, strike through written, will be given notice of his or her accrued sick leave in real time through the district online personnel platform, and then strike through with each paycheck. Whether we call it Employee Central or we call it staff portal, whatever we call it, that kind of gives that general blanket of the district online personnel platform.
Make sure she's.
Okay. Oh, okay, sorry. All right. All right, and then moving through, nothing on page 2. Page 3, we are proposing paid family leave. So up to 15 consecutive workdays of paid family leave will be approved for any employee covered under the association's collective bargaining agreement within the child's first year of birth or adoption, or for an immediate family member's medical necessity for long-term care. This leave is available only during the durations of the employee's contractual year and cannot be accrued, bank donated, transferred to another employee. And then going through application and documentation, we have 3 sections. So for birth, an application for leave accompanied by a written statement from a licensed medical provider verifying the pregnancy with an estimated date of delivery must be submitted to risk management no later than 30 days prior to estimated date of delivery. In the event of emergency delivery, the application for family leave will be accepted within 30 days of birth. Adoption, number 2. An application for leave accompanied by documentation of formal adoption approved from a recognized court or agency must be submitted to risk management within 2 weeks of the official adoption approval. Medical necessity for an immediate family member. An application for leave accompanied by documentation of long-term care and medical necessity from the immediate family's member's medical provider must be submitted to risk management. Risk management has 5 business days to review the application for leave and determine if the leave is approved. Immediate family member is defined as spouse, domestic partner, birth, adopted children, stepchildren, siblings, and parents or step-parents. And then on page 4, conditions of paid family leave. Family leave may not be used intermittently unless expressly approved in writing by the superintendent or designee for medical necessity consistent with applicable law. Number 2, employees may use accrued sick or vacation leave after the 15-day allotment of family leave has been utilized to maintain pay during the Family Medical Leave Act or other approved leaves consistent with the CBA, board policy, state and federal laws. Number 3, family leave does not extend or modify other rights afforded under FMLA or related federal state statutes. Employees are responsible for meeting any additional FMLA notice requirements if they wish to run FMLA concurrently. And then in 20.3, bereavement leave. The gist here is that we are proposing to up bereavement from 2 days to 3 days. And having a special carve out for 5 additional days, which is not 8, it would be either 3 or 5, depending on how they're coded. And up to 5 additional paid days of bereavement leave for the death of a spouse, domestic partner, or a child. And then the up to 3 days of bereavement leave is also available for the following extended members, which is current language other than the 3 days. And we are asking or we're proposing that bereavement leave is not transferable or accruable and must be used within 30 calendar days of death. And this is the proposal that we're adding, unless special circumstances are approved by the immediate supervisor. Knowing that sometimes that you don't have a funeral or a memorial within 30 days, especially with cremations or other family plans, you might be waiting. And so we wanted for special circumstances to be considered there, that they would still be able to access bereavement leave if, services or something like that was outside of the 30-day window. And then on page 5 of 7, on 20.8 National Guard and Reserve training leave, we're proposing to add an active duty. And so current language reads, teachers who are members of National Military Reserve Unit or the National Guard ordered to active or inactive training duty, and we're proposing to add or active duty during the regular school year shall be compensated up to 240 hours in any one annual period to participate in required training exercises or active duty. That's the addition, without loss of accumulated leave. Supporting documentation may be required upon application for military training leave or active duty. And then on page 6 of 7, we are good with your proposed language that says district recognizes the unique challenges faced by military families and shall provide priority consideration where lawful to qualified military spouses in hiring and internal transfers. So we're good with that.
I just have two questions.
Okay.
It may seem seriously, Brian. The 20.8 on the National Guard, I'm just reading this again, make sure we're just not repeated active duty, make sure I'm not missing. Teachers who are members of a National Military Reserve unit or the National Guard ordered to, it says active or inactive.
Training duty. But if they're actually
They're-
called for active duty,
During active, active or training duty. And
yeah,
active, so you're discriminating between active and inactive training versus
yeah,
active.
because
duty.
right now they get it, yes, because right now they get it for active or inactive training duty, but they do not get it for if they're actually called for active duty.
Understand the clarification now. And then number 3 on 20.2. Talk to me about, I read this a few times as you went through medical necessity for an immediate family member. So how is this different than other leaves that this may be covered under at this time?
So this would be allocating specifically an extra 15 days for people
That's
that need to take care of a parent that may be dying. Things like that that are medically necessary, that they're going through maybe the other end of life instead of the beginning stages of life with children. But also recognizing that it needs to be consecutive and medically necessary, for like long-term care. Because again, this isn't an extra 15 days of sick leave. This is for very specific family reasons that you would need to take for, immediate family members, and being very specific with immediate family members, that it's not the list that we have under bereavement leave, even that it's very tailored to children or spouses or parents. Good. All right. These kind of all go together. Because you guys propose teacher 4.41, para 8.8, the progressive discipline, and the ESP 6.6 discipline, but we also have other things embedded in those. So I'll kind of go through, but I'll give you all 3 contracts so that you have them. That's teacher 4. You're gonna have to share these.
Back in Article 6 of them.
This is ESP 6.
ESP.
Yeah. It's up at the top part.
Yep.
Okay. All right.
Where are you gonna start?
Let's start with the ESP. So, with ESP, Article 6, Terms and Conditions of Employment. Management had proposed to strike through, in 6.6 discipline toward the end, where it said progressive discipline steps 2 through 4 should be copied to the Director of Labor and Employee Relations, Regional Assistant Superintendent, and or Senior Director, and Polk Education Association. And so when we were looking through that specific one, we'll go ahead and go straight to it. We think that relevant management should be copied based on who the employee is. But we also believe that we should also be copied because we're the holders of the contract. And whether they're a member of their union or not, our job as the certified bargaining agent is to ensure that contract is being upheld. And so that we still feel that we should be copied on discipline 2 through 4 to ensure that contract and people's rights aren't being violated. And so that language that you see in 6.6 is mirrored in the other two. And then if you flip to the second to last page, under 6.8, everybody else has their actual work days and not weeks. And so we are proposing to strike through 52 weeks for 12-month employees, and they actually work 247 days. So making sure that they have days that are aligned up with everybody else, instead of 52 weeks. And then we are also proposing in 6.8-1 for school orientation day. School orientation day during pre-planning week. If a school's orientation day falls outside of an ESP's first contractual day or regular working hours, an ESP may volunteer to participate in the school's orientation if deemed necessary by their supervisor. If an ESP volunteers to work, they will be paid at their regular hourly rate of pay to be processed through the supplemental pay application. And then that's it for ESP 6. And then we'll go to teacher 4 next. And so on page 3 of 7 is where we start. And so we have proposed to add the same mirror language that we proposed in ESP 6 into teacher 4.4-1, which says progressive discipline steps 2 through 4 should be copied to relevant management and the Polk Education Association. And then down, we are proposing to add a new 4.44. This is current ESP language right now. And so when we were looking at cleanup, we wanted to make sure the 3 contracts mirrored each other and these types of things. This is a very good practice to have in all 3 contracts. But this is current ratified language in ESP 6.6. So it states, if the preliminary investigation is concluded with the finding that there is no probable cause to proceed further and with no disciplinary action taken or charges filed, a statement to that effect signed by the responsible investigating official shall be attached to the complaint, and the complaint and all such materials shall be open, therefore, to inspection pursuant of Florida statute. Before disciplinary action is taken, the employee shall be made aware of the person who is making the accusation, and that employee, at the discretion of the principal and immediate supervisor, shall be given an opportunity to confront the accuser. And so this is current language in the ESP contract in 6.6. So we are proposing to add this into teacher 4. And then that is it for teacher 4. And then para article 8 has these same themes, but a few other things that we've also have on the slate for para 8. So starting with page 2, we are proposing to label the CDAT section here. It doesn't currently have a number notation, so we're proposing to add 8.2-5 and then renumber as appropriate. We are also proposing in that section to modify the ratios. While we recognize that these are federal ratios, we are looking to make those better, since the federal ratios are the floor. And so for 2-year-olds, we are proposing 1-to-10 ratio. For 3-year-olds, we're proposing a 1-to-10 ratio. For 4-year-olds, we're proposing a 1-to-15 ratio, and for 5-year-olds, a 1-to-15 ratio. Currently, it's a 1-to-11, 1-to-15, 1-to-20, and a 1-to-25 ratio. Going down and adding proposed language, CDAT employees must still receive their contractual 2 15-minute breaks and their 30-minute duty-free lunch throughout the day unless they have agreed to be compensated at their regular hourly rate of pay for these contractual breaks. Exchanging breaks for compensation must be agreed to by the end of the pre-planning week each year. In 8.27, this is a very interesting old piece of language that we were very confused on, and it didn't make a lot of sense. So we're proposing the change here. It says such reassigned paraeducators, or I'll read the whole thing so that there's context. So in 8.27, paraeducators may be reassigned by their principal or supervisor on a temporary basis to a different paraeducator job title due to an extended absence of the regular employee. Extended absence is defined as 10 consecutive duty days. Such reassigned paraeducators shall receive $1. Currently, it says $1 per day. We are proposing that it reads such reassigned, right? Like, okay. Such reassigned paraeducators shall receive $1 hourly per increased pay grade they move. Payment will be retroactive to the first day of reassignment. So we are asking for this to be updated, because $1 per day per pay grade moved is crazy. We are in 8.2-8. We want to revisit and propose different supplements for our paraeducators. Currently, paraeducators receive $50 a day if they are directed to sub and have an unfilled job number. We are proposing that goes to $80 per day. And then if it's a half-day position, going to $40 for the half day. I highlighted this part in blue because we're running into procedural issues that we don't know the procedure on your side, and so we're asking for some help here. Because right now it states the supervisor must present a paraeducator with a substitute form, which includes the unfilled job number. Upon completion of the workday, the paraeducator must present this form to the payroll secretary for payment in the next available pay period. We know that that's running through supplemental pay app now, that I believe they have to put in an IAQ ticket for that. And so we're really asking for this to be cleaned up with what the current process is, so it's clear for paraeducators and how they need to submit this. So we're kind of putting that to you to see if we can work on that. Okay. Moving to page 4. This also has the orientation day language that we just read for secretaries. School orientation day during pre-planning. If a school's orientation day falls outside of a paraeducator's first contractual day or regular working hours, a paraeducator may volunteer to participate in their school's orientation if deemed necessary by their supervisor. If a paraeducator volunteers to work, they will be paid at their regular hourly rate of pay to be processed through the supplemental pay application. And then the very last page is where the discipline, progressive discipline section is. Again, we are proposing that relevant management be copied and the Polk Education Association. And then 8.81, we are bringing in new language that is current ESP language. About, you know, if preliminary investigation, if there's no findings, and it's the same language.
Okay.
We might get through everything we brought today. Finally got
What do you got?
2 more things.
Got 5 minutes.
All right.
Figured we could caucus and go around too.
All right. You guys.
I'll give you this.
Give you both at the same time. You can kind of split those. Okay. All right, so when we were going through, this is more cleanup. So this first part, in para and ESP, so this is para Article 5 and ESP Article 4. So currently, the non-discrimination clause in both of these contracts is existing language, but it's in miscellaneous article, like that's what the article name is. And in 5.2, it says employees shall not be subject to discriminatory treatment. That's our current language, right? And that's in both articles in 5.2 and 4.2. So we are proposing to bring the current non-discrimination clause into this article and remove it from 15.1 and 13.1 in the ESP articles. And I'll read the non-discrimination clause if you would like. But we want to just move it from one article to another because we feel it's more appropriate here. And then we would want to strike it from 15.1 and 13.1 if ratified. And then this, the next part that we are proposing to add is current teacher language in teacher 10.4, and we would like to bring this into our para and our ESP contracts. And so we would have to renumber as appropriate, but new 5.3, the board and the association agree that proper classroom workplace decorum is essential. Employees in the performance of their duties shall not be expected to tolerate harassment, abusive language, upbraiding, insults, or interference by a parent or any other person. And so that's currently in the teacher contract in teacher 10.4. And we are wanting to bring this language into both our para and our ESP contracts.
We're good. And what I'll do is I'll go back to our Nakata department to make sure, even with respect to, as we move the non-discrim, that it's up to date with where they live every day as well.
And that's the same exact one that we have in the teacher
Should
contract
be
as well.
updated. It should be
Yeah,
updated then.
we did work on that about 6 years ago.
Okay.
So that's what we have for you guys today.
And that's it. That's a wrap.
And so we come back in what, 2 weeks? Ish?
September 2nd, Wednesday, September
No,
2nd.
probably had an August date.
No.
Oh, no. Okay, it's September 2nd, so a few weeks. All right.
It's August.
No, it's like the middle of August already.
I know.
Yeah.
It's crazy. All right, well,
September is in 3 weeks.
oh man, okay.
So let's,
It's
yeah,
starting
we'll
on
put this on
Tuesday.
the record. It's September the what?
September the
Okay.
2nd,
Second.
Wednesday,
Here.
September 2nd,
here at Jim
5
Miles
to
from
8
4:30 to 8:30,
Second.
4:30 to 7:30.
5 to 8 PM.
5 to 8 p.m.
Oh,
This
5 to
this
8.
is the one that has a different time.
What are we doing?
Oh, man, okay.
Second.
All right, September 2nd from 5 to 8 at Jim Miles is when we will come back.
Thanks, read their own Facebook posts.
Yeah,
All right.
forgot. All right, thank you, guys.
Thank you. All right.
Muted, I'm not muted.